Hi guys, I'm Becca Otis from Five Lines Pottery, and I'm located in Van.
And I'm Ryan Durbin from RD Ceramics, located in Highland Heights, Kentucky.
And welcome to Wheel Talk.
About this, and it could just be I just need something to start, and then I can rattle off some questions that I could ask, because I generally, like, everybody that I think of that I want to ask to be on, I'll just already have a list of like 10 questions I could ask them to get, like, I can get an easy 30 minutes out of them, and then I'm like, okay, what valuable information could they share about this specific topic that they've either talked about publicly on their social media, or like I feel they have a unique experience different from other people that I've seen.
Shared it and whatnot.
So I basically just reach out to them and say, hey, I'd be interested in having you on the podcast to talk about this, that, or the other. And if you'd be willing to, you can schedule your time. And, most people, I can expect out of 10 people, usually about 7 of them will commit and actually sign up. Or if they sign up, you might have to bug them a couple times just so they don't forget. But usually people aren't as quick to respond and schedule, but people have been quick lately. So I don't know if it's because I've been asking more people or what, but
yeah, probably. Since you have X number of inquiry, if you will, you're seeing an X number of respondents.
Yeah, and I think the length of like the podcast has been around for a while, so people kind of know other people that have been on it, and it's
catching on now.
It's got more credibility than it has in the past of asking people. Not that they have I don't think people have outright said no, but usually it's they forget or they just don't prioritize it because they're busy, which is fine. So I know it's not easy to commit 2 hours to something like that,
It's like a win. It's kind of like, so it's a win-lose-win situation where you don't have to figure out a topic, which is great. You lose because it's on their time, not your time. So
who's the win-lose here? You're talking about in relation to us hosting it?
Us hosting it. We win because we don't have to figure out a topic. We lose because they're figuring out a time and we don't get to control that time, because typically we would do this podcast at 9 p.m. your time.
Yeah.
And it's like you guys do have some...
We have some parameters of days that
correct, because let's say when I went on to it, there was only set hours that I could choose from. So I think if you list them, it's still a win for you because you're still controlling the hours and whatnot.
Yeah.
It's only a lose. I think it's only a lose for me because I'm in the fucking mountain time, so it's 5 o'clock here, and it's right in the middle of my day. But
and you're also mobile, so you have to figure out where you can do it with a decent connection.
Sounds like you should just come back here.
Sounds like you should shut the fuck up.
It sounds like that's a you problem, not an our problem.
Sounds like you guys have -degree weather right now, and fuck that shit.
It was much better.
I think it's 25 right now, maybe, but...
Wow!
The high was 32.
But yeah, it was noticeably colder coming back here than it was in Utah, which is surprising, but...
Yeah. It's 55 degrees, and it's 5 p.m. here.
That's pretty good. Yeah.
I didn't even look, and I knew that it was 55 degrees, and then I just looked, and it was 55 degrees. But it also gets a little chilly at night. Also, I got a toilet, and it's great. I'm doing great.
It's a great feeling.
A great feeling.
Yeah, she was using a bucket for the longest time for number one. I think she's using number two elsewhere, but...
No, I get it. I lived out of a Jeep. I get it.
Yeah, you lived out of a Jeep. Well, you have a penis, so you can just pee wherever you want.
That's correct. You have a penis, and so there's some value to being able to stand and walk out of the Jeep.
And so, yeah, anyway, I got a toilet, and I feel great. I'm never coming back. I don't need anything now. I have everything.
Completely off the grid. I don't need a shower.
Is that a 5 gallon bucket, or do you have access to a room and all?
What?
You have is it a 5-gallon bucket or?
It used to be.
Uh,
It's an actual toilet, like a $100 toilet with a. I don't know. Do you want to explain it? What else is what are the features of the toilet?
It's called a cassette toilet, and it's basically it looks like the toilet in an airplane, you know, where like you pee in it and then you like flush it and the slot moves.
Oh yeah,
and and then there's a tank in the bottom, and you put this blue stuff in it, the blue goo, and that like deodorizes everything, and like I don't know, it like breaks everything down, like what would happen in like a septic system, and it's got an
I didn't
actual
realize the
toilet
blue
seat.
stuff actually had a function. I thought it was just for smell and like color. I didn't realize it actually like broke things down.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure it breaks things down, and yeah, because the color is important.
It's blue
What's
down.
great about it is that it like I didn't buy it for like a whole year because I've been peeing in a bucket for a year, and I was like, no, I'm not gonna get a legit toilet that I've been thinking about for a whole year, and but I have this squishy pad that my friend gave me to sit on, you know, to help your back, and it fits right on top. So now I could just use it as a seat and a toilet.
That's great.
You just need to put
Win-win.
casters on it, and you can get around your, use it for a little workstation.
That's right.
Put a little bidet on it as well.
I looked to see if there was a bidet portable toilet, and there's not, which is a fucking bummer.
I'm sure if you mounted it if it was mounted in like an RV or something and it was in a specific spot, you could probably figure it out, but
you're also crafty. I think you could figure it out.
I could figure it out. I think we're fine for now. Just the fact that I don't have to like go shit in the woods is great, you know? And like out here, you can't like go anywhere. Like, you know, we're not in a bunch of trees. We're like, there's like a small bush over there. You know.
I mean, there's sand everywhere. It's basically like the world's litter box. So I mean.
Yeah, it's like the world's largest litter box. But Lloyd still chooses to use his own litter box because he's an asshole. So.
Maybe he's being environmentally friendly, in some manner.
Maybe. Also. Okay, this is the last thing for me, but he was on top of the van today. He slid down the front windshield today. I was like, oh, I didn't know where he was. I never know where he is. I don't care. But like, yeah, his front paws just like 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 he was like struggling to get down the front windshield. So
that's funny.
Nice.
If I could give him a rag to wipe off my solar panels, that'd be great. But yeah.
Oh yeah, you can't really get up there very easily.
Mm.
Do you have a ladder or something that you can?
No.
No.
I just use other people's ladders.
Yeah, that's true.
Could be a good future Christmas gift.
It would
be one of those
collapsible or like a rope ladder.
I don't want a rope ladder. I am too fat for a rope ladder, okay? I know who I am, and a rope ladder is not something that I'm willing to.
Can you not mount a ladder to your van?
I could mount a ladder. That would be pretty nice.
Yeah.
Oh, I think the cows are coming.
Well, if you had your video on, we could see.
Hold on. I don't know. Lloyd is terrified of cows. I hear him. Do you hear him?
No, I do not hear him.
Hold on, I'll turn my video on really quick. Okay, hold on. The cows. To the cows. Where are they?
It's so grainy.
It's so bad. Move, Lloyd, move.
She gets cut off.
Are we on a potato? Like, what are we watching this on?
There they are.
I can see him in the background.
Oh, yeah.
There they are.
He's pretty far away from him, so.
You got a good spot.
Yeah, but they were like across the street earlier. They're coming.
You say across the street?
Yeah.
Are you on National Forest or just a road?
Bureau of Land Management.
Nice, perfect.
In Arizona.
That's awesome.
Did you have to figure out places you could actually stay when you were doing it?
Yeah, I mean, I used, I forget the app. Becca, what is the app that everybody uses?
iOverlander.
No, I didn't use that one. There's another one. It's super popular, and people were starting to navigate toward it.
I use Outly and iOverlander.
Anyway, it doesn't matter. So there's locations on it that'll show you like where you can go, very similar to iOverlander, and it's gonna come to me like in 5 minutes what it is. But so you can tell you locations. I'm sorry.
You can splurt it out when it comes.
Yeah. But it would tell you the location and tell you like how the Wi-Fi was, your cell phone signal, so on and so forth. It have pictures of stuff, and but I would use that. But then I also stayed at national forests. Because what is national forest like? 14 days free, I think. You can stay.
The Bureau of Land Management is 14 days free. I think national forest might be the same.
Yeah, I think
you just have to be like 50 feet away from a road.
Correct. Yeah. So I stayed at the campground for like Shenandoah and all that. Well, that's a national park. George Washington National Forest. So I stayed there for 14 days, and then I would move on to somewhere else. And
so it's different for forest versus park, because we were just in Bryce, and I was like, I paid $35 to get in here. Like, I would assume people can just, if you're in a van, because there was a bunch of vans. Like,
and I had but also I think you can have your national park pass. Like, just go ahead and. So I bought a national park pass. Actually, the Smokies is the only national park that's free to get into. So when I stayed there, I don't think you actually stay. I stayed in forgetting this, the national forest below it, Montala National Forest. I stayed there. I didn't stay in the Smokies because you can't stay in there without being in the campground, I believe. Then went to George Washington, Piscataway National Forest. But then outside of that, wildlife management areas, and that's like $6 per day, or you can buy like a annual pass for $14. So I just bought an annual pass
for that specific area, or
yeah, for that specific area, and that was like $14 for the year. But I would stay there for like 1 or 2 weeks and then move on to the next one. And yeah. So
do most of those? I know they have like campgrounds and stuff. Do most of them have showers and bathrooms and stuff like that?
No, I had a portable one.
Okay.
In the Jeep. So it was like I think it's called like a Wolfgang. It's on Amazon. Full tent. Shower would be inside it, and then I would and it has a motor, so it pumps the water out of a bucket. Shower real quick.
Was the tent like off the back of the Jeep?
I would attach it to the side of the Jeep.
Oh, okay.
Kind of secure, yeah, I'd secure it to the side of the Jeep, but I mean, it was collapsible. But if I was in an area like a national forest and it was just me, I would even use the tent, just kind of free range and go about my business. Yeah. If there was, I'd put up a tarp around to kind of block off my area, but it was fine.
Yeah.
And if I got a shower, typically I would go to like a Flying J or a Pilot and use one of those real quick, or I'd go swimming in a lake somewhere. But yeah.
Oh, I'm a big fan of lake showers.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you were talking about before about the soap that you can use or supposed to use or not use and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I called a friend and I was like, here's the deal. She's like the most environmentally friendly friend I have. And I was like, I need you to find a shampoo bar that I can use in the lake that's not going to kill fish. And so she found me one. And it's actually the best shampoo bar, I think. It's called Kiss My Face.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I've heard of that one actually. Isn't the REI brand usually pretty acceptable?
Oh, I'm sure.
It's like, it starts with a C. I can't remember what it is. Not Castellini, but it's like something of that nature.
Yeah.
But I just bought that and carried it around.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it's great. The showers out here, you can take a shower at the rec center and it's only $1. Nice. Which is like the best deal you could ever find in your whole life.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
I just remembered I did use Shenandoah National Park's shower when I was there. And it was cheap as well. Like couple quarters, something like that, or 4 quarters.
Yeah.
Sweet.
Yeah. Good shit.
But as you know right now, the only issue really is just like the Wi-Fi aspect of it.
Yeah, and I haven't. You got a Starlink thingy or the
Yeah, I've got a. It's not Starlink. It is a Boost.
Boost. Yeah.
So it just attaches to the back of the Jeep, and it's basically a pole with I don't know, maybe a 5-inch by 3-inch in diameter. Signal at the top, and so as long as I have one bar, it'll boost it 2, 3, 4 bars.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I think I was near Charlotte, in a national forest, and didn't have any service. So with noon and stuff like that, the whole purpose for me was traveling and whatnot. So I ordered that off Amazon, shipped it to a Dollar General, picked it up, attached it, because you can go pick up Amazon packages from Dollar General.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So it was like, where do you want to ship it? And there was no Amazon locker near me. But there was a Dollar General that was like an hour that was the closest to me. So I just drove the hour, picked it up, came back, and then at that national forest, I ended up having 3 bars with the thing on. I was like, this is perfect. I can just hang out here now for the next 2-3 weeks or whatever, and then
right. Does it extend physically as well, or is that not necessary because that
so it
extra,
comes with an extension of like 2 feet. I just did the standard, which is maybe like 3 feet in height. But you can get extensions for them.
Okay.
Yeah, if the podcast wanted to buy Becca one from Josh, we could.
We could probably swing that.
Well, I think the reason why I didn't pan out is because you need a different mount. So the one I had is
figure it out. We're pretty
She's crafty.
We'll send you the antenna along with the ladder.
Yeah.
And we'll just say it's a tax write-off for.
It'll be a business expense for the podcast, so she could be mobile.
You need the ladder to mount it up there, therefore both are important to buy.
Yeah. No, I won't need it for a while. I mean, I feel like I haven't had, as long as like Ryan's okay with not seeing my face, which I actually love because a lot of the times I get up and move around because I'm too ADHD to like sit in one spot for a minute. Like as long as he's okay with just hearing me, it's been pretty good.
Yeah, I think it matters more when there's a third person on the call and you're not on video. It's just a little. It's not weird. It's just. It's a less than perfect, I guess.
Yeah, I would say I think for me it's easy because I know you.
Yeah.
Like right now, like I'm staring at your photo, but I know your mannerisms and stuff like that. So I'm like, oh, I can see what she's.
Yeah, because I do.
Most of the time, Most of the time I'm in the studio, and like they have Wi-Fi, so it's fine. But right now I'm trying to get some work done, so I went out into the desert so that I wouldn't get distracted.
Yeah.
And I really didn't want to drive back, so that's where we're at.
Yeah.
Okay. Control what you can.
Yeah. And since I didn't even know we were having this conversation until yesterday because I got messed up with my calendar. We've had so many so many different things to put on the calendar, and I missed this one. He was like, well, we're talking with Josh tomorrow. And I was like, oh, good to know.
Yeah, I think when we rescheduled it got messed up or something. But Rachel was having a lot of issues with hers, though. Her iCloud like kicked her out, and she had to re-authenticate. So she was getting nothing from me because we share some things. But yeah. So, but we got it.
Yeah.
We got it.
It's all good.
Yeah.
It's all gravy.
All good.
We should probably introduce you. We've been recording this whole time because I was like, there might be some nuggets in there. Plus, I think that people will find your camping stuff interesting.
People want to hear about your new toilet,
People want to hear that I have a penis and you have to. And you can go pee in the woods because you have a penis.
And you can shit in peace now, Becca.
Yeah.
And you're not shitting in a bucket anymore, or pissing in a bucket anymore.
Yeah. No, Lloyd, no. Okay.
All right.
I just made fish rings today, and he's been stepping.
Who are you? What do you do? How do you know us, maybe?
Is that the question?
Yeah.
I thought my eyesight was good, and I'm like,
Put your glasses on, Joshua.
I'm sorry.
Put your glasses on.
I got my contacts in. I might need to go back for a re-up. So who am I? Is that the question?
Who are you? What do you do? How do you know us? Why do we have you here?
It's a great question. I'll start with how do I know you? I was using Thumbtack, which is a kind of lead service generator. I think it's nationwide. It's kind of like an Angie's List.
Yeah.
But I was using that. Rachel found it for personal training. I suspect everybody knows who Rachel is.
Rachel's my wife.
Rachel had reached out, and we've been training since. And I feel like it's been like 7+ years. 7 years.
Yeah, I was about
easily.
to say. I was thinking 7 years. Yeah.
7 years easily. So I had to do what?
You've transformed into friend zone instead of.
I went into the friend zone.
Yeah.
Actually, I feel like I went into friend zone pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Because I remember when Rachel came down to the gym at one point, she had a flat tire. She called me, and I drove out like 2 miles from the gym, changed her tire, came back, she trained, left. Even then, like, you came to the studio a couple times.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then I guess the next question's, who am I? Joshua Reed. What I do is personal training, nutrition coaching. I do run coaching. Very holistic in nature. So I guess do you want to know my background?
Sure.
So you can just ramble.
And what do you mean by holistic too?
Good question. So holistic meaning, holistic everything. Social wellness, thinking about the conversations it can entail, how it impacts your physical nature, your nutrition, so on and so forth, because our stress, our emotions can impact the foods that we reach for. So it's navigating, okay, if you're stressed and that's impacting your nutrition, let's talk about your stress and whatnot. Thinking about the management of what is bringing you stress, how do we kind of like find joy or ways to reduce your stress, so on and so forth. Sleep is a big one. Creating kind of like either an evening routine or a morning routine, thinking about habits as a whole of like some people like want to start reading books. So like helping people do that. So very holistic in that sense, but it's still holistic in fitness. So even like Becca shared a video with me today on Instagram, and it's kind of the focus of that video was kind of like movement should be what you enjoy, not necessarily prescribed as to what somebody believes you should be doing or what you have to do. Like you have to go to the gym 5 days a week and you have to do this exercise and all this stuff. So instead it's a matter of finding out what works for you instead of telling you to do things that doesn't work for you, if that makes sense.
Yeah, prescribing a one size fits all thing.
Correct, yeah. And so that's the biggest thing with like thinking about like, I think from the get-go, my thing is kind of like finding what works for you so that you create a program that's sustainable to you and creating that consistency aspect of it. Otherwise, if I give you a program that I think is perfect, whether it's fitness, nutrition, etc., it's not perfect for you because you're not going to be consistent with it by any means.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
And how long you been in that kind of field or that?
So I
suspect you had some schooling and stuff in that that led you into wanting to do that.
So I started the business. So I had a business prior to this one. So this one currently, Wellness with Joshua. This has been, I guess I'll start from the beginning. I started my previous business, Reed's Wellness and I don't remember what it was. Reed's Wellness and Fitness Training, from 2014 to 2019. 2019, I closed up shop, traveled for a bit, came back, worked for Noom for 4 years. So Noom is an app as well that's very focused on weight loss. But during that time, I coached coaches, as well as kind of like, so I was kind of like a mentor, if you will. But then also worked with typically like I'd have probably like 400 clients. And I'd probably talk to like per day, send like 150 messages per day and whatnot in that time span. And that was very holistic as well, thinking about like just talking about everything that impacts fitness and nutrition, stuff like that. Left there February 2022 and then started this up.
Wow, it's been that long.
Yeah, I know. I was like, Whoa, has it already been this? Like, it's already been.
Yeah, it's been over. Yeah. Wow.
It's actually, wait.
Almost 2 years here.
No,
So.
wait. 2023.
Okay,
Sorry,
you said
thank you.
2022,
I was like, wait, I
and I'm
just
like,
celebrated my 1 year.
it's been 2 years already?
So it's
Okay,
been 1 year
it's been
since
1
this
year.
business, and the other one was 2014 through 2019. But even prior to 2014, I was training people at the university, Eastern Kentucky University, and I did some stuff while in grad school. So talking about education-wise, I have a bachelor's in exercise science. Was at Eastern Kentucky University for 5 years. But while I was there, my focus wasn't personal training. My focus was to go into physical therapy and athletic training. So I worked with like the football team there, the basketball team, some track athletes and stuff. The focus was, so I created a pre-physical therapy club there. And that was kind of like helping students who were starting physical therapy go into grad school. And so it was teaching you like everything you need in terms of what classes and stuff like that. Like you needed to have this physiology class at EKU to get into UK's physical therapy school and so on and so forth. Where you could go for your observation hours and whatnot for both like the hospitals, outpatients, so on and so forth.
So it's kind of like an advising group,
Correct.
mentorship.
Yeah, so I started that, and I was president of like the Exercise Sports Science Association there. So I'd go around like the southeastern U.S. talking about education, stuff like that, and how to kind of like move forward. So then I went to UK for physical therapy 1 year. So I stopped out for 1 year because I was like just done. I did not want to get into insurance and stuff like that. I was like, what did I do? I worked at a spine clinic in Lexington, Baptist. It was Baptist Works turned Baptist Health turned something Catholic. But anyway, so I doing all that. I was a technician at a spine and hand clinic, which that hand clinic will help with what we're going to talk about later. But during that time, I was like constantly calling insurance companies, and patients were always denied. Like people with kind of like the worst pain to think about. Back pain is the worst for me anyway. When I think about back pain, it's the worst kind of pain you can have because no matter what position you're in pain. You could be sitting, you're in pain. You could cough, that pressure, like kind of in this lumbar region, if you will. You're going to have issues and whatnot. That pain's going to come up. You're driving for X number of hours. You're going to have pain in your back. Like it's always there. You laugh, you have pain in your back. So it's always there. But anyway, so I called insurance companies all the time. I was kind of like, hey, this patient needs more hours and stuff like that. They were denied. And I was just like, insurance is so frustrating. So it was hard. So I ended up leaving physical therapy school, and the PT I was working for had recommended biomechanics. So then I transferred from physical therapy.
What's biomechanics like entail? So
biomechanics is like an engineering of the body. So you're studying humans in space, if you will, kind of like. So my specialty was more running, injury prevention. So actually, have you ever seen the when they do video game creations? Like they have the dots, the markers all over them.
Yeah.
They have the suits on, and then they kind of like put them in this like black room where there's like 30 plus cameras, like super nice $10,000 cameras all around. That's essentially what I would be doing. Yeah. So I put somebody on a treadmill and analyze, if you will, their running patterns and seeing how certain forces, if you will, from all different angles would impact certain areas of their body. So like if a ripple effect of treadmill running, the foot striking, it's a ripple effect all the way up from the ankle to the knee, to the hips, to the spine, to the head. And how would that impact a runner, or how could we actually improve their running economy, so on and so forth.
So that it doesn't end up with like injury, or it's like optimizing.
Correct. Optimizing. So you could also think about outside of running, you can think about it as like we always did a bunch of studies of just like people sitting. One study we did with UK students was looking at how long it took before the spine began to fatigue and collapse. So you can kind of transfer this over to pottery. We had found at that time it takes less than 10 minutes for the spine muscles, the stabilizers and whatnot, to begin to fatigue, and you start to round forward because they don't have the strength to like keep you up that long. It's only 10 minutes. So thinking about the mindfulness aspect of just like you have to stay erect, you have to stay positive, you have to constantly create motion, get things active in that manner, and then so it's not just like how forces are acting when running, but also how when we sit, And so actually this is a good analogy or knowledge to have. So when we lay in bed, there's 20 pounds of pressure on the spine. That's very little. When we stand, we have 100 pounds of pressure on the spine. When we sit, because we're sitting in this position in a good posture, that takes it to 140. As soon as we start to round forward,
140 pounds?
140 pounds of pressure. So as soon as we start to round, I'm like, am I in the video still? As soon as we start to round, and you have really bad posture, your hand comes up here to reach for the mouse and stuff like that, all that pressure goes down, increases from 140 good posture to 275 pounds of pressure on the spine. And that's
oh my God.
a lot to think about when you are in that position for 8 hours working, thinking about you. If you're here 8 hours working and then you go throw for 4 or 5 hours, and you have, let's just say if you had bad posture in that manner, 275 pounds of pressure, 12, 16 hours a day, like at some point you're going to have, your back's going to hurt for a reason.
And I'm worried about me crossing my legs because I can't find a comfortable position. I always do this, or I'm sitting on my legs, or I do this. Or...
So in biomechanics, you're essentially, so even for that position, we would study, let's actually have some subjects come in. What would sitting like that look like? What kind of pressure does that put on the body? What kind of issues, or maybe there's actually benefits of it because it may actually create space in other areas, if you will. So, yeah. But anyways, biomechanics is basically like the study of human motion or human movements, but using more of like forces and numbers and everything else. So, but you're analyzing people. So
yeah.
So anyway, me going from physical therapy to that, I didn't have to do like insurance and stuff. I didn't have to. I enjoyed it because I enjoy observing people. And even to say that, it's like when I first started in university at EKU, I wanted to do sociology because I was like, I just enjoy observing people. But biomechanics gave me more of a reason to do it in terms of like movement. I can now study and like observe people in motion and movement and say like, oh, if you correct this posture, you do this or whatever. I'll remember for a second. I actually had a client recently who bought one of those Swiss balls to sit on, and she worked for P&G. Do you want me to sit this here?
Yeah, you said that thing.
Worked at P&G, but her husband made her this Swiss ball chair for her to sit on. So the idea of a Swiss ball chair is like you're creating motion in the core and whatnot, so you're keeping everything stabilized the entire time, versus if we're in a chair like this, at some point we kind of just relax and we're just here and we kind of slump and fall forward. But a Swiss ball keeps it upright. It doesn't have a backing, so on and so forth. The problem with Swiss balls, though, is that you don't have anything to rest your elbow on. So for her, she began to have rhomboid issues. So if you lean forward, rhomboid is going to be like, so if you're looking at the spine, and then your scapula, which is kind of like this massive bone here on the left and right side for your shoulder blade, we'll say shoulder blade, make that easy. Stupid simple. The muscle that interlies between that. So basically when her elbow was relaxed and didn't have that place to rest it on, it began to drop. So all of a sudden she's reaching for her mouse. This shoulder's depressed, it's downward and hanging out. She's like,
yeah.
I have shoulder pain all the time. I'm like, okay, send me a picture of your workstation. So when I say holistic, this is also what I do. Holistic meaning like we look at everything. So looking at the workstation, how do we assess? How do we analyze? How do we change up the workstation because you have pain and whatnot? So I feel like even looking at yours, like you have good screen height and whatnot. So it's like your head's looking forward. It's not slouched. Again, as soon as we slouch, that 275 pounds of force pressure on the lumbar region. So the bottom layer of the spine is the lumbar. This kind of like chest level is thoracic, and up here cervical region. So as soon as we go forward, down here is 275 pounds of pressure. But for her, because her elbow is dropping, all that pain went into that shoulder blade and whatnot because she didn't have support there. So again, going back to it, she's sitting on a Swiss ball thinking good for the spine, good for the core. However, everything's starting to drop and she's not keeping that stability in the shoulder, keeping everything up and like using it optimally and whatnot. So yeah.
Wow.
That's interesting because like
it's like how you asked me one question, somehow we got here. I'm sure it's all related if we look back.
It's for sure. Also, he does consultations online, just so you know.
If you go to counseling.com.
Yes. That's interesting because I always am like advocating for people to just raise their stupid wheels because And because pottery wheels are not made to keep your back nice, you know. And I'm always like, get your wheel up, even if it's 2 to 4 inches, like just get it up because you want it at your belly button so that you're not like having that really bad posture and like, you know, like slumping over. And I feel like that's one of the only reasons that I've been able to do production for such a long time is because I've always had my wheel raised up. And yeah.
But still seated, but raised up more than it would be if you just use the legs as is. Yeah.
Right.
So going back to the original question of like what education-wise with biomechanics, etc., the biggest thing in biomechanics is videoing people, watching people. So my recommendation for everybody listening and whatnot would be to just video yourself, because even as Becca said, if she's watching all these people like have, and you're recommending, well, just raise your wheel. It makes sense because you're looking at other people and whatnot. You're observing people. Take a video of yourself and just look at yourself. I'm going to say 100% of the time, it's going to answer a lot of questions like, oh man, you know, this left side of my back's really bugging me. I don't know what's up. And probably at some point in your day, you are hunched over and you might be reaching more laterally to the right side or something like that. And you're stretching more of the left low back or vice versa. So that's probably definitely one recommendation. Just video yourself when you throw, when you're doing your wheel, etc. See what you look like when you do it. Because a lot of times, even if you don't need to have like the best knowledge to look at somebody and be like, bruh, I bet their back hurts. Look at them like that, posture and whatnot. Like you'll be able to look at it for yourself and know. Shoulder rounding forward, low back, so on and so forth. So,
is it always like is it always obvious? Like, hey, this specific thing is putting more pressure on this, or like, you know, you're
not initially. I think most we usually figure it. That's kind of like my comment earlier about that research study at UCAM. You know, less than around 10 minutes. You know, some subjects lie to like that 15-minute. You're kind of doing like a standard error of deviation of like where a certain individual lies. Some people fatigue out at 5-7 minutes. Some people fatigue out at 15 minutes. But the average is around 10 minutes. So I mean, you're not going to notice it initially. So for some people, it may take them 10 minutes, may take them 15 minutes. And by that time, if you think about it, by the time you reach that point, you've probably already gone numb to even thinking about like, oh, I feel that.
So it sounds like you should record yourself later in the work session, not at the beginning.
Not at the beginning. So even when I say like I specialize in running form and stuff like that, I always recommend clients send me running form videos on the treadmill after they've kind of like started warming up. They're kind of like in their mileage and stuff like that. It's maybe like whatever they're training for that meets them in terms of like duration, mileage, etc. Finding a happy zone of like they're warmed up, they're going, and like start recording then, versus I'm fresh. Look at me, like I have really good posture, so on and so forth.
And you're actively thinking about it.
You're active because at some point in anything that we do, we start becoming mindless, absent-minded, if you will, and like not thinking about what we're doing.
Mm-hmm.
So then everything starts to fail for the most part. So
yeah. Okay. Becca, what do you got? I got some here, but
let's go.
No, I like your question so far.
What is there something specific that like motivated you to get into this space and like want to do what you're doing now versus like what you've been doing historically?
So when you say now, do you mean like the wellness?
Yeah. Like meeting people one-on-one and doing that kind of thing versus, or just like getting into
where I am now, period? Yeah. So I think, I don't even know if you know. I know Rachel knows. I think I've always been a person who cares for other people in general. So growing up, my parents took care of, and we'd have like 12 to 13 people in our house at a time. And this is all special needs, mentally and physically challenged and whatnot. So it'd be my parents, my brother, my sister who was adopted at 7 who had cerebral palsy and autism. That's kind of like our family. But then we'd have X number of individuals staying with us at varying disabilities, stuff like that. Some you would look at them and be like totally normal, but it'd be more of like a behavioral issue. Others you could, you see and you're like, oh, okay, they have a physical or kind of like Down syndrome, etc. You can kind of like tell. However, it's always been caring for people. So my parents did that for 13 years. Even my sister was, like I said, 7 when she was adopted, and then passed away. I guess it's been almost a year now, so that'll be in April. Passed away at 43, which is like kind of outside the average age for somebody with like cerebral palsy, autism and whatnot. So she lived a long, very good life. But that's just, it's always been caring for people. But then I think with me being athletic, it kind of turned into the physical therapy world, and then slowly got into personal training, etc. And I think personal training for me, it's been more like my own business. I have more control. And it's not a matter of like I want control. It's more a matter of like there's a lot of business. I mean, you guys probably do the same thing with like pottery and whatnot. You're kind of like, yeah, that is not good. There's just a lot of people in the fitness world. Maybe fitness is very saturated in the sense of like, there's more. How do I want to phrase this? You can go on social media and you see a lot more fear mongering or preaching on certain ways, or this is the one and only way to do something. But in reality, for me, it's always been about, again, I'll go back to the holistic part, finding what works for you and going from there. So I feel like I have my own way of doing things. Again, it's not a matter of me taking control of it, but it's a matter of like sitting down with an individual, listening to them, what they're navigating, stuff like that in life and their day to day, and then figure out what really works for them. So it's like,
yeah. That sounds like taking a pill versus actually going through like therapy or something like that, and actually digging in about personalizing it.
Yeah, so a lot of people do not personalize. Your job as a personal trainer is to personalize, like personal training. So it's to personalize, but a lot of people, coaches wise, send out very generic, not tailored programs. And so, you've probably heard the analogy of like, everybody has the same amount of time in a day. That's totally wrong. Because if you're a mom of 2 kids, your time is not going to be the same as mine. I don't have kids. I have a job where I can very freely schedule my own things, so on and so forth. Our times don't look the same.
We probably value our times differently as well. So
exactly, yeah, your priorities are going to be different and whatnot. So if I'm creating a program for a mom of 2 kids, I'm going to recognize that she's going to be super busy, especially if she's, again, a single mom, 2 kids, working full time. I'm going to recognize that she doesn't have an hour to do a full workout. If I told her to do things that I like to do, she's not going to go out and run for an hour and then go do strength training later, something like that. She doesn't have that time. So it's a matter of like creating something that's going to help her stay consistent. Of like, okay, what do you think works for you? Oh, 15 minutes? Okay, let's create a 15-minute program. What kind of equipment do you have access to? Oh, you have some dumbbells and kettlebells. Perfect. Let's do that. Here's this. Let's see how you move and whatnot, which can be like a ramble of its own of how people move specifically, because we're all different how we move. But again, tailoring it to them, because again, putting the personal training and then going from there. So, but anyway, to your question originally, it's kind of like, I think for me, all of where I am now everything stems from childhood. So I think it's stemmed from childhood, growing up with like taking care of people, and then now it's kind of like taking care of people. We'll go back to the word holistic, fitness, nutrition, social wellness, so on and so forth. So, yeah.
Okay. How do you think, I feel like I saw you say something a couple days ago about like motivation versus, I want to say discipline, but yeah. Maybe you said consistency or something, and you're kind of saying consistency here. And when I hear that, I think of like discipline, but they're probably intermingled and tied together.
I'm sure if you had like a linguist of some manner, like they could probably break it down like, oh yeah, consistency and discipline is not the same. It is this. Here's the difference.
Yeah.
But for where we're at right now, I think at the end of the day, they are both very similar.
Yeah.
Motivation is something that ebbs and flows. Like we could be very motivated to do something because there's an external stimulation or an internal driver, if you will. But if something bad happens to us, then I'm not going to be as apt to do X, Y, Z. So actually it's, what is it? I can't read. It's the 18th of January. Actually, I said this today. So the second Friday of January is known as Quitter's Day for people who do resolutions. And that's because people typically quit by the second week of January if you want their resolutions, which can be a whole topic of its own. However, so like, there's a psychology term called the spotlight effect. Wait, sorry, that's not right. We're talking about something else. I just want to blank on what it is. It's like fresh something. Anyway, so basically it's kind of like, it's new, so I'm going to be very motivated to do it. By the second week of January, most people are not as motivated to do it anymore because kind of like the motivation has kind of weaned off, and now life's starting to kick in. Now it's like, oh, I'm super stressed from work. I'm just going to put this aside, and it kind of it becomes more consistent in that manner of like putting it aside. Then all of a sudden you just stop as a whole. But we need to rely on discipline. Discipline requires having a plan in place, preparing for things, knowing what we're going to do and stuff. And I'm sure there's an analogy behind like pottery in the sense of like how I'm purchasing your equipment or whatnot, or how I'm going to get started versus kind of like you get started, you're motivated, maybe you took a class or whatever, but you don't have the discipline to keep going for whatever reason. Maybe like if you don't have,
I mean, part of it is you pay for it, so you feel like you have to
yeah,
get the value that you paid for.
Right. So it's kind of like
show up for
you have to show for it.
8 weeks or whatever because you already paid for it.
You already paid for it, right? So, but then it's a matter of like what happens at the 8 weeks? How do I keep myself consistent after that and whatnot? And that's where the discipline comes into play of like having a plan in place so that I can stay consistent in the long haul. So yeah, discipline always comes first, and I think I'm drawing a blank what I typically say. In terms of action precedes motivation, if you will. So it's kind of like if I take action rather than relying on motivation, I take action, action's going to create results is going to create motivation to keep me going, and then it's a constant cycle of that.
Action could be as simple as just showing up
and
to the studio.
Yeah, just show up.
Okay.
So
yeah,
we hear things that we do.
Yeah, we hear some of that in the space where it's like, being inspired, like waiting for inspiration to
people wait for inspiration to come, and it never does because people who typically say, and I'm sure there's a lot of people listening who do say this, we all say this at some point, you know what, I'm going to start pottery, I'm going to start fitness, I'm going to start nutrition in February because I'll be done with this and it'll be a better time then.
Like after the holidays.
After the holidays, holidays. Yeah. Holidays is a prime example of just like fitness and nutrition because it makes sense. Everybody's super busy, you're traveling, you're doing XYZ. You're always going to be tempted by certain food and stuff like that. However, as soon as January ends, something is always bound to happen. You could have a work event party come up. You could have friends thing, whatever. Something's bound to come up, and it's gonna. I'm envisioning a person right now because I just had a conversation with her today, who keeps reaching out, kind of like, "Hey, I really want to work with you. It's just not the right time." And I was like, I'll say "girl" in place of her name. Girl, I was like, it's been 3 months since you reached out the first time, which that's totally cool. It's fine because some people, you can't push people to do certain things. You have to do it. They have to do it on their own will and whatnot when they are ready. But yeah, you can't say when it's the right time because there never will be a right time for most people. There always will be an objection in some manner. There will always be an excuse in some manner. And it's a matter of just taking that action, whatever that smallest action is. It might be like, so thinking about gym and resolutions, most people usually don't start going to the gym until not the first week of January, but the second week, because the first week they spend planning. All right, I'm going to sign up for Planet Fitness. I'm going to Crunch or whatever you do. The second week I'm going to start because now I have to, that's typically how long it takes people to like find the gym, sign up, take care of the financial aspect, contracts, go visit the gym, and then typically you say, oh, okay. Well, today's Thursday. I'm just going to wait until Monday because that's a new day, and I'll just start then.
Yeah.
So it's very common. But yeah, it's take the smallest action no matter where you are. Whatever your goal is in life, take the smallest action because that smallest action is going to help you. It's the driver. So thinking about your push-ups.
Yeah.
What inspired you to start with your push-ups?
I think that started because I think it was at ClayCon West last year, so it was this time last year, and I met I think I already knew Dell, but I talked to Dell there, and he was in the Army, and he did a lot of push-ups and stuff. And I was like, how many can you do in like one time? Or how many did you regularly do it?
Yeah.
And I think he said he does them usually about 50 at a time or whatever, or that's kind of like what he would be expected to do. And then I was like, could I build some habit? Because I like doing them, and it's something that I could consistently do because I do enjoy it. So it was that, and I was like, okay, I'll just start with 20, and then I'll build on that. I didn't have a plan to like 20, and then at this month it'll be 30, it'll be 50, and then it'll go. It just kind of like naturally, did it.
Progressed and whatnot.
And then I was just consistent with, okay, I'm gonna definitely do it today. Like I can fit in 20. You can do 20 any time of the day. You can break it up into 4 5s or just 2 10s or just do 20 at once or whatever. And just started there, and since I wrote it down, it was an accountable thing that I could see that there was a space there that I need to fill in.
Visualization. So
and it's at my table, so I know that I have to do it. And then it just built on that. And then I think once I hit a certain number, like 100, I pretty much had to keep doing 100 just from my ego of like wanting to hit that same number and be consistent with it, no matter if I, we were out and we like partied or drank or whatever and went to this thing and I wasn't, feeling like I still did it, even if it was like 2 a.m. or whatever, just to finish it so I can get it done. Usually it's at the end of the evening, like after my studio or whatever. Or sometimes like I did some during the day today because I was like, okay, I got, let's knock out like 30. Yeah. Just so it's less I got to do later.
Yeah. So, but I mean, to go back to what you originally said, looking at your post-its, you said you did 20, and that probably for you was like 20 feels very doable. So for you, that was that small step to get you where you are now, and so you have like a bunch of post-its all the way up there that you've stayed consistent this entire time.
Yeah.
And so, one, we can talk about creating those small habits in that manner of like, no matter what, this is the smallest step that I can take and create for myself to say, like, there's no reason why I can say no to this. So that's why when I talk about habits, it's like break it down. And so the conversation we originally talked about was kind of like stupid simple. Break it down to the most stupidest simple form so that no matter what, you can't say no to it. 20 was your number and you did it. And so after that, it becomes more of a non-negotiable. So thinking about habits after that, what are the non-negotiables you need to implement each day in order to keep you moving forward and staying consistent with it? For you, it was a matter of like doing push-ups every single day and doing the specific number versus being like, oh, well, this guy said he did 100 or 50 or whatever. I'm just going to do that. And you probably would have failed. We'll say theoretically, you failed at it because it was too many and you weren't ready for that. And you probably wouldn't have kept going.
And so, I think it was like building a habit too. I don't know. I'm sure there's some math around building habits and how long it takes to actually form a habit.
Yeah. I mean, there's ideas of like, at one point people were saying like, oh, it's 21 days to form a habit. It's 30 days to form a habit. I think if you think about the perfect world, for me, I think about building a habit. It takes months to do it.
And there probably takes a hint of like how much discipline do you have as a person and how much, I want to say time, but time, a lot of things, you can fit in a certain amount of time for anything, I feel like.
I can't raise my hand because you can't see me, but
but I'm currently raising my hand.
But yeah, I'm currently raising my hand in the dark. I am somebody I really suck at habits, like building habits. I have no habits. I can barely brush my teeth in the morning every morning.
I was about
to
say,
I have to set
your teeth twice a day, non-negotiable.
Like, well, and like I forget to take my medicine that I've been taking for 2 years still in the morning. Like I'm one of those people, so I'm like I can't, like, for somebody like me, what would you recommend? Because like I think the only thing that I ever really stuck to was this is kind of dumb, but every time I went up the stairs, I did like 5 stair push-ups, and every time I went down the stairs, I did 5 squats.
Yeah.
But now I don't have stairs. So, here we are.
I also live a very routine life, so I'm curious if like routine is built into your...
Routine is big. So typically if somebody so you just asked me that, what I would typically ask then is kind of like, has there ever been a habit? You said you don't have any habits. I'm sure you do have habits. Has there ever been a habit that you were proud of that you, how do I want to phrase it? Has there ever been a habit that you did that you were proud of and that you kind of like, oh man, I don't even know how to phrase it now.
I want to say felt accomplished or something?
Felt accomplished, but also what did you do to achieve that and whatnot? Like is there ways you can take that habit and mimic, take that habit and mimic the what you did around that for now? I'll also just say, I think that a lot of times our environment impacts our habits. So it's kind of thinking about if you're not taking your medication, well, why are you not taking your medication? Like, is it out of sight, out of mind? Or is it one of those things where like, so do you drink coffee or tea?
No.
What do you do when you wake up?
I get out of my bed.
What do you do after that?
I usually pee.
So that's a habit. You pee when you wake up. But okay, so what do you cook at some point? Like, do you make food as soon as you pee? What's after that?
No.
Do you get on your phone?
Well, I'm usually if I'm like out of my bed, I'm not on my phone. I typically brush my teeth and like get ready. I mean, now I get ready like I take a quote unquote van shower and uh like, but that's about it. I don't really eat at the same time every day, and I don't really.
I'm sorry, I missed it. Did you say you did brush your teeth?
I do brush my teeth because I have to.
Okay, so that might be something where like you put your medicine next to your toothbrush.
Right, yeah, I do. I mean, now I've figured out, and I have to set an alarm for myself.
Yeah. So it's doing those kind of things. So even Ryan mentioned before about his push-ups and stuff like that. One, he has visualization, like it's not out of sight, out of mind. He has his post-it notes here, he can see them. And then if he's in the other room, you said you have something there to remind you as well?
No, I don't have anything. I just have this. This is
Okay.
They've evolved off of the wall.
Yeah.
Because,
but if you're working here and you see that, you're not gonna forget it.
Yeah.
Most people with their medicine and whatnot, kind of like what I was getting at, was kind of like they put their medicine in a cabinet and then forget about it, and like that cabinet door's never open, or they put it in a cabinet where like they just
Right next to the tea kettle because
exactly.
I make tea.
Mine's next to my
figured
coffee,
that's what you were going towards.
Yeah. So it's kind of like figuring out a habit that you're already doing. So you said you brush your teeth. How can I? So another term that we use when we do habits is double stacking habits. How can I double stack a particular habit that I want to build with a habit that I've already created for myself? So if you have the habit of brushing your teeth all the time, and it sounds like you're doing it already, putting that medicine and whatnot with the toothbrush, so that you see it. Like Ryan said, he does it when he has tea. I do it when I have my coffee. My partner does it when she does mornings and evenings. Mornings are with the tea. I make her tea in the morning, so I grab the medicine with her, which is probably also an accountability aspect because I'm there like, grabbing her stuff for her. But no matter what, even before me, it was there. And then her evening pills are in the medicine cabinet, so when she brushes her teeth in the evenings, it's right there. Yeah. So it's building habits of like double stacking and whatnot. If I'm already successful with one, how can I implement another and kind of like build upon that? So
yeah, that's good advice.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, no problem.
What about I'm thinking motivation as I don't like showing up and like getting in the studio and like getting to something that feels more monumental than such a simple like 5-minute thing. It's like it's getting you into the rhythm of actually committing to be in the studio for X amount of time. Like what would you say for somebody that's not as motivated by getting in the studio? Maybe it's like it's in their garage, so it's colder and it's weather dependent, and maybe it's they don't want to do it at the end of the workday because they're exhausted by that time. Totally. Or how would you kind of tackle something like that and maybe it's just an understanding of what motivates you, or building that habit so that it works for you rather than forcing something on you, like you just need to do it at this time because that's the only time you have available. Right. Like how would you kind of
I think going back to the non-negotiables, what's one thing that I have to do no matter what? So tell me about your space when you finish work here and you go in there. What's like one thing that you have to do no matter what first? Is there one thing, or has everything already been done?
You're talking about in the house?
Yeah.
That has to get done.
Oh, well, just in the room, like you're going to pottery and whatnot.
No, I mean throw my studio shoes on, throw an apron on.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't really.
So even thinking about that, some people actually with that, even for runners, that's the biggest thing. The hardest thing is just a matter of like get going, and so a lot of times it's just a matter of putting the shoes on. And my recommendation is always like go for a 5-minute walk, start walking, and then okay, let me give myself 5 minutes of running. If I feel like crap afterward and I still don't want to do this, I'll turn around. 90% of the time, that's not the case. And usually after that 5 minutes of warming up and you're good to go, game over. So turning it back into pottery is like, what would be things that kind of like get you in that same position? Like, no matter what, this is a non-negotiable. I need to do X, Y, Z. So it might be like preparatory in some manner, whatever you're doing.
Maybe you have to prep the clay, or you
correct. So
you can't get started because you have to prep the clay first.
Yeah. So that might be the thing right there for you. It's like, okay, I'm just gonna prep the clay. If I'm not ready to move forward after this, I'll do it tomorrow no matter what. But typically why people, once they get started after the preparatory aspect of prepping the clay and whatnot, you're good to go. It's a matter of just getting in there. It's that taking the action, putting my shoes on, putting my apron on, getting in there and doing the clay. as soon as you start taking action and getting into the motion, people are typically good to go.
Mm-hmm.
My other recommendation, I'm kind of like visualizing like you doing all this stuff. So I mentioned double stacking before. You might be double stacking things you enjoy with the things that you don't want to start with. So in this case, it might be a matter of like, I enjoy listening to music. So you might go ahead and put the music on. You might prep your environment or your space for pottery to get out there. If you enjoy watching movies, you might put a movie on while you're getting ready. You might just like take 5 minutes, whatever, watch it, hang out in the room for a little bit, and then get started. But I think no matter what's kind of like just spending a little bit of time in the environment or whatever you're getting ready to do, and just taking the action of like, put my shoes on, go out there and do it. The other thing I said before, what I was getting at before, was like the non-negotiable of like, no matter what you're creating so going back to your push-ups, if we said your non-negotiable no matter what was 20 push-ups per day, like that's your non-negotiable. So no matter what, you have to do this. Otherwise, it's kind of like you're failing yourself, you're giving up on yourself and whatnot. This is more of like respect to what you're trying to build, respect to yourself and whatnot. So thinking about pottery, what would be non-negotiables for you guys in terms of like, no matter what, I have to do this. Like I think Becca, I saw that you're doing a 100 challenge. So like no matter what, you're doing 100 right now or trying to and whatnot. So it's like, this is my number by the end of the day. This is what I have to do to achieve it, so on and so forth. So you have a plan in place of like, and I think I saw in your stories, like you kind of like had a post-it note and you're doing certain things. Like maybe you're like throughout the day, you're doing a certain number of things or whatever. But I think having that non-negotiable, what'd you say? Sorry.
Oh, I was going to say like, yeah, so I am doing that. We talked about it last week in our podcast, but we're doing 100 a day for how many days we want to do it. And I'm doing my jewelry, and I was just thinking how you were talking about like, I mean, just working is a fucking habit, and it's like, it sucks. And like I've had to kind of like get past that for many years. And yeah, like it's like I'm doing 100, right? 100 things today. Well, at 25 I got up and I took a walk around my campsite.
That's huge.
And I came and like, and I have to like set timers for myself and say like, oh, at 2:45 I'm gonna get back and I'm gonna start like working on what I was working on and get back to it. And I'm a music listener, so I listen to music, but you can like time yourself with like shows and stuff too if people are show people.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
Yeah, so it's kind of like what I was saying about runners before, but like go for a 5-minute walk, turn it into a 5-minute run. It's the same concept of like set a timer. So I think you're kind of getting at like 30 minutes. Set a timer for 30 minutes. Just tell yourself, I'm going to be out here for 30 minutes, and then I'm going to stop.
Yeah.
The majority of the time, like you're probably not. You're going to keep going. However, I like the way you phrased that because it was more of like you're out there for the 30 minutes, but then you take a break. And that's huge in its own because a lot of times we just kind of like push through it and we burn ourselves out because we're like, go, 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 go. And we don't take breaks. The same thing with like, we can go back to posture. We can go back to how we begin to like fall forward and whatnot, slump, so on and so forth. It's actually more productive for you to stop and take a break at 30 minutes, 45 minutes than for you to keep pushing forward because at some point you're going to get more tired, fatigued. You might get more sloppy and whatnot, and that is going to affect you not only as a person, but also your business as a whole. It may be a sustainability for the business as well. Like if you're constantly just go, 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 you may not last that long in it. So taking those breaks is huge in productivity. And
what would you recommend for the break? Is it to rest? Is it depending on the person? Like what you need to rest? Do you need to rest your brain? Do you need to rest your
brains first for sure? I would say for you guys, I would think that like, one, taking a break from your brain or whatnot, doing something you enjoy, but I would definitely get some movement in that wasn't just, being in that position.
Repetitive, yeah.
Becca, did you say walking earlier?
Yeah, I try to, I even did this when I was doing production at Rebecca's. I would do 25 pieces. I'd get up, walk around the studio, and then I'd sit back down, do 25 more, get up, walk around the studio. Yeah. And like maybe chat with people just to get your body moving because you do need that. Like, especially if you're going to do a lot of pieces and people think that you need to like, hammer through it. And that's not the case. Like, yeah, I can throw 100 pieces in an hour and a half, but I also
exhausted too.
Yeah, I would also much rather throw them in 4 hours.
Right.
So.
Yeah. So I think taking the break, so to your question, Ryan, is kind of what you should be doing in between. do the opposite of what you're doing in that position. So if you're like this, Becca's example was perfect of like standing and walking, because now you're getting that spine erected, you're getting everything active, so that when you go to sit back down, muscular wise, everything's going to be active again and getting you in that good posture position to be able to hold everything in place.
Mm-hmm.
But thinking about the brain, so I think I like Becca as well as like when you said being social, going out and talking to people, doing things, being social and whatnot, that's actually going to benefit us in terms of like feeling more recharged. Even if you're introvert versus extrovert, finding things that you need to do that brings you energy. So whatever that is, I would do that. And maybe even taking a timer of like, Becca, did you say you had a timer of like in between, like how long you would do your walk talk?
Yeah, a lot of times I'll look at the clock. I won't necessarily do a timer, but like right now it's 6:16 here, and if I was done, then I'd be like, okay, it's 6:30. I'm gonna start working again.
Yeah. So just having a short break, and usually like 10 minutes is enough to do something like.
Yeah, it's not like watching an entire episode of something
Yeah,
for 30 to
because
45
then it's like,
minutes.
oh crap, there went 45 minutes or an hour and a half of just doom scrolling or watching Netflix, whatever. And you probably would feel more exhausted doing that than if you actually got up, walked around, talked to somebody, did XYZ, did something that brought you joy. I'm even thinking about like, I said doom scrolling, so like scrolling through your phone and whatnot, or watching. I don't know if like Netflix technically is. I think more scrolling typically brings us more anxiety than anything, because we're just constantly scrolling. By the time we finish it, we're like, I didn't do the things that I was supposed to. Or you're.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people do it as a means to escape what's actually happening. I shouldn't say a lot of people. Most people or a lot of people kind of like to an extent do it for that reason. Not everybody. Depending on like who you follow, what you follow, so on and so forth. So yeah, to answer your question, I would say like do things that bring you joy and that bring you energy before you go back into it.
Yeah, I mean, I even do that when I'm driving across the country. If I am driving for a long time, I will make sure that I get out of my vehicle and eat somewhere. And even if I'm sitting down in a different chair, it's better than like sitting in my vehicle eating a sandwich. Like,
Yeah, totally. I mean, this can all go back to like working from home as well. Like if you
Yeah.
work from home, you live in the same space, you're basically just here. Like creating those breaks for yourself, getting outside of the house. So like I'm correlating that to driving and whatnot. You said you get out of your vehicle, you stop, you do your thing and whatnot. That brings you energy and kind of like you don't get burnt out, depressed, etc. as much if you were to just stay in your van 24/7 and not leave it. Same with
Right.
somebody who's working from home. If you're not leaving the house or anything like that, or going outside to do things, you're going to be pretty like mentally and physically.
I mean, it feels like you could be productive, and you're like, okay, I have no excuse. I don't have anywhere to be, so like I can do this. But like I try to go to the post office because otherwise I wouldn't get any exercise or walk.
Yeah, and to probably also when you get outside, even if you were to delay, because you typically go to the post office at like noonish.
Yeah, 1 o'clock, something like that.
Yeah.
And then I eat after I get back.
Yeah. So say if you were to do that later on in the day to like 4 or 5 o'clock or whatever, and it's like a super nice day out, and you've been sitting in here, like and it's like dark and whatnot. By the time you go out, you're gonna be like, I mean, before you leave, you're gonna feel exhausted, depleted, so on and so forth. But once you get up and start moving, and you also have that vitamin D from the sun and stuff like that, and you're kind of like either Rachel's with you, and you're talking. If you didn't go to 5 p.m., you're like, why didn't I do this sooner? Because now I feel better. Mm-hmm. So I feel like you doing it 12 p.m. is actually like a perfect time midday wise to kind of like build that energy up by the time you get back to recharge. Yeah, you're eating, you're getting stuff. So I think kind of like going back to the original question of what do I need to do to get started? I think one, build your environment in a way that kind of helps you stay consistent or like that you enjoy it versus kind of like, I don't really want to go in the garage because it's cold. Get a heater in some manner. Try to make it better for you so that you do want to go out there and that there are no objections to it. Putting your shoes by the door if you need certain shoes to wear to go to do your pottery or whatever, so that you can just slip those on and you're like, okay, my shoes are on. Now I have to go. Sometimes it's a matter of like talking to people, like somebody who's inspiring or whatnot. You can say like, so maybe like Becca and Ryan, like if you guys are going back and forth, like say Becca's not motivated, you talk to her and all of a sudden you guys are talking about certain like topics of throwing. And then you're like, okay, yeah, now I want to go throw. Because typically if we talk to somebody like that's fun in a way and inspiring or just motivating, then we're ready to go do X, Y, Z. Or maybe it's like listening to a quick 5-minute podcast or motivation video that we're whatever to get us going. Like those are good options as well.
Mhm.
So
Ryan has been my accountability buddy for as long as I've known him.
yeah.
And
I feel like not so much anymore, but I don't know, maybe still in spurts.
Yeah, I think still. I mean, well, we wouldn't do this podcast if it wasn't for Ryan. But talking about freaking habits, man.
Every Saturday, no excuses. We have to release one every Saturday.
Yeah, and I know it's different because there are different people like who are very disciplined and whatnot, and those who are not.
Like I'm not disciplined at all. I'm the most undisciplined human being on the planet. Like I woke up at 11:30 today, and I'm still gonna do 100 pieces today. Like, which means that which means that I'm gonna do them after this podcast. But
she's actually.
But like,
you can't see her.
Are you doing them right now? We can't see you.
No, I thought about it, but I decided not.
I have bad.
But Ryan being so disciplined has helped me. And like, back in the day, I would say just stupid things. I'd be like, ugh, I'm not motivated today. And he would call me and we'd just get on chats and just start working.
Yeah. So I think to your point, I love the word accountability buddy. That's a word I've used for the longest time. But I think having, and we'll kind of correlate this also to or relate this to the question as well. Having that accountability buddy. It's like you guys could even start something. I don't know how you might do that. Maybe you send an email to everybody and like, hey, here's a spreadsheet of people who are interested in having accountability buddy in some manner, who wants to team up with who or who are friends with who. And that way people can at least have options of people to talk to or whatever. Somebody reaches out, hey, Bob, I'm like not feeling motivated. They just chat for 5 minutes or maybe they chat while they're throwing. And it's going back and forth and whatnot. Or maybe like something I like to do while I'm running on the treadmill. Like running is the most boring thing on a treadmill. And so it's like, for me, I actually watch running videos sometimes of just like documentaries of stuff or like what can I learn at this time or doing things that I enjoy.
Mm-hmm.
And so actually going back to the original conversation of like motivation versus discipline, at the end of the day, it all relies upon discipline of you just showing up and whatnot. So it's even if it's for 5 minutes, just show up doing the smallest thing that you can do. And having the non-negotiable and whatnot. So again, call somebody, whatever it takes for you to like be motivated in that moment, but still having the discipline to show up no matter what. So I don't know if that made sense, but it sounded good in my head.
It made sense.
Thank you.
So are there similar clients you've worked with that do something similar like what we would do in pottery, where we're sitting, you're doing something physical, but you're not very mobile, kind of pains or something that they would be experiencing, and like how you would, because it sounds like it could be as simple as time boxing what you're doing so that you're actively, you said taking breaks, but also changing your movement so that you're not so, set in making the same exact thing all day, for your body's, positioning and not like, feeling like a robot doing everything. So like, are there people like that you've worked with and like what they've run into? Or
so your question is there people in relation to like very similar to pottery where you're doing monotonous things?
Yeah, repetitive motion.
Yeah. I mean, anybody who works at home and whatnot, you're typically at your computer, even your day job and whatnot.
Yeah.
You would say that's monotonous, or very similar in that nature?
Yeah.
Yeah, same thing. Even when I worked at Noom, our job was to do, it changes and whatnot, depending on what season it is. But like at minimum, say one day was like you had to do 140 tasks. And so it's a matter of like Becca said earlier, I could throw 100 and get it done in an hour and a half. However, I'm going to be like super miserable. I'm going to be burnt out, and I'm just like, I'm done with the rest of the day. So it's a matter of taking the 140 tasks that you would do and kind of like splitting everything up. So if I'm working an 8-hour day, how many do I need to do in 8 hours per hour and whatnot? So say like, we'll make it easy. Say I had to do 80 tasks. I'm working an 8-hour day, so I had to do 10 tasks per hour. So what I would do when I would work in Newman is I would do like power hours, where my power, actually I call it power half hour because I can't stay focused for an hour. So a power half hour, I would also, and actually this might actually be helpful toward that last question. I would set up Zoom calls with my team. So we had a team of like 14. You have like multiple teams throughout Noom as a whole, but my team is about 13 to 14 people. I would set up power half hours, whether that's in Slack or whether that was in a Zoom call. It would start in Slack, typically transfer over to Zoom, but we would just kind of like start. That was our accountability buddy, if you will, in the Slack channel or the Zoom at 9:30 a.m. or whatever on this day. We would do it, and I put a post up. Hey, it's power half hour. Get as many tasks done you can get in half an hour. But it was the motivation and like accountability of like having those.
Well, it was like a meeting on the calendar that everybody had to attend.
Knew about it.
So it's like you get whatever you want to get done before, but like this is dedicated.
But it was also optional. I think when you have the option to show up in such a way, it kind of gives you that freedom versus being like, well, this is forced. Now I really don't want to. But I think because it was more optional and just kind of like, hey, this is like, let's have some fun with it. So I'd put on some music and stuff like that. We'd have the first 5 minutes of the conversation just to like talk and catch up real quick. As soon as that clock went, we were all focused. And so even to that, this actually might be helpful toward your question, but also the prior question as well. Have the timer count down and be visible so you can see it. And that kind of creates a sense of urgency and a deadline. And so when we see that, when we have that deadline and urgency, we're more apt to do things and get it done. In relation to like out of sight, out of mind, time blindness, if you will, like very popular in the ADHD world of like time blindness. All of a sudden it's been an hour and you're like, where did that time go? So having that time there visible, you can be like, okay, there's 20 minutes left. I got to get this done. You're typing, you're trying to get it done, so on and so forth. So that's one thing in terms of like somebody who does a monotonous job of doing tasks on a computer, spreading things out, half power, half hours. So that for me was like have my power half hour and then I take a 10-minute break and walk around and do something, stretch out, do whatever. Yeah.
What about when that list is totally guided by you? Like you're the only decider and you're the only person
you're an entrepreneur.
Yeah, so like nobody's gonna force you to do the thing that you have to do, and the things that you have to do is totally chosen by you as well. Like you don't necessarily know exactly what you need to do.
Yeah.
You just have an idea of like, based on I'm gonna be motivated to do this, so I, these other things I have to do, like, pay your sales tax or something. Like you have to figure out how to fit that into the things that you want to be doing. So like, and maybe that just goes back to, being disciplined to just commit to doing something.
Yeah. I'll pull a piece out and it's kind of like, say, we can go to pottery as well. Say it's to somebody who's getting started. I think it's kind of, you do your homework in terms of like having resources to help you get started. So like you guys are great resources. You've been through this for a while now. So it's like, not necessarily. So actually I saw a quote the other day. It was something like copy. I'm going to butcher. I'm going to give like the briefing of it. Basically it's like copy people who know what they're doing until you figure out your own way. And so essentially like people copy you, but they do it in their own way, but they might not do the scale you're doing, but maybe find a scale that is doable to them.
Which is kind of the 100 a day where like,
correct.
Will's doing 500 over 5 days. So 500 in total, but like Becca's doing 300 over 3 days maybe. So some other people, they were like, hey, if you want to join this, do it. And it's just setting a goal that's reasonable. Correct. And then just,
and that's how you do any goal. So the acronym for it is basically SMART goals. And now that I say this, is like when we're talking about like overthinking. I'm totally going to overthink this and forget every single one of them. So specific, measurable, achievable,
timely,
realistic.
Realistic. Thank you. I was like, oh no, I just wanted to blank the R. Realistic and timely.
Okay.
So when you create your goals, you're doing it in that manner. But kind of what you said, being kind of like meeting yourself where you are and whatnot, that would fall in that category of being like realistic and stuff like that. So like, what can I actually do that's achievable for me without saying, oh, I'm going to do 100, but yet I've never done 100. And therefore, as soon as you do it, you're going to be like, oh, shoot, that was super hard. I can't do this. Or like, you're going to have that failure. So instead it's like, what's going to make me feel most accomplished? So that goal might be like 15, 20.
Right.
Yeah. Whatever the goal is for you that feels most achievable for somebody, setting it up that manner. Yeah.
And there's some things that push different people forward. Like for me, I like to see a bunch of pieces on a board that are like organized.
Right.
So it could be like stacking up bisqueware that's finished, or I mean, obviously it shows like getting sales and you come home with empty bins, or there's different motivators and
Well, yeah, that's kind of
things
what I said
that like
before.
push you forward.
This is what I said before about you taking action. You see the results, and then you get motivated, and then you take the action again. It's cyclic. So you have to create the pottery. You make the sales by taking the pottery to XYZ. You have the sales like you feel accomplished because you emptied the bins and brought them home and whatnot. That creates the motivation for you to take action again.
Mhm.
And then, like I said, it's more very cyclic in that manner, just like a constant cycle. So that's where you rely on the discipline part after that, because it's like, oh, right, I know that if I take action, I'm going to get sales, so on and so forth. That's going to increase my motivation, and yeah. So
I think that also, I think about me as somebody that I'm a late day person in an early day world.
Yep.
And and Ryan's this way too, actually. But I've always like, I think I've always failed at setting goals for myself, because I've always been like, I'm gonna get up at 9 a.m. and I'm gonna get up at 6 a.m. and do this, and I never actually get it done. Because and it wasn't until I started working at Rebecca's doing production pottery that I had like a schedule per se, and I realized that if I got there at 9 a.m., I would still leave at 5, even if I got, and then if I got there at 1 p.m., I would still leave at 5. It was like, I just,
It's yeah.
it was no different, you know? And so that's,
Yeah.
and for me, like accepting I'm just not gonna get any done in the morning has become like a super big learning curve for me. And like just being okay with waking up at 11:30, you know, but going to sleep at 2
Yeah.
is and like accepting the fact, accepting who you are also has to happen in this goal setting situation, I guess,
1000%.
is what I'm saying.
Yeah, no, I think, yeah, because you alluded to like there's this stigma in the world where like you have to meet the we'll go to like the hustle. The hustle world is kind of like actually old Gary Vee used to be like get up at 5 a.m. and do XYZ, and now he's totally more holistic. Holistic meaning that like you have to take care of yourself.
Yeah.
And I feel like in the last couple of years, maybe since 2020 actually, he's been more along that mindset, if you will, preaching about it more. And so no, I think what you said was kind of like getting to know yourself. I think when we get to know ourselves, that's when it becomes the game changer of what actually works for me. So if it's like, oh well, in this space, it's preached that I need to do X, Y, Z in order to be successful and stuff like that. I need to get up at this time to be most productive. However, most people are not productive at that time. It's a matter of finding what time's best for you. So again, going back to creating habits, what's best for you? You guys are late night throwers and stuff like that. You do your stuff later in the day. Becca, you're saying that like you are not productive in the morning, so therefore like you're more like I need to sleep in the morning and get my sleep so that I can be productive. Because if you didn't get your sleep and you woke up early, started doing it, you'd be super exhausted anyway. So it's like, what's the point of getting up that early if you haven't even got these hours of sleep and whatnot? So no, I think at the end of the day, it's like a matter of finding of like what's best for you. So even when I do things, like right now, for example, I typically get like I go to bed late. For me, that's like 11:30ish, and get up at whatever time Susie has to be. She works at the sports club as a trainer as well. Whatever time she has to for her first client. So I set my timer to that. That's my sleep schedule. And then after that, my morning's kind of like my schedule or whatever is that I kind of like make breakfast for us while she's getting ready. But as soon as she leaves, I utilize a power hour where I message all my clients. Like that's my non-negotiables. Like no matter what, as soon as she's done is gone, my habit is doing this work in the morning because I know that for me that makes me most successful because it's like I don't have to worry about anybody texting me. I don't have to worry about me getting on social media because it's still relatively early. Like nobody's gonna message me around 6:30 a.m., 7 o'clock. I can spend that hour and use it as a power hour and just knock things out, and that works for me. So yes, I think it's a matter of like finding what works for you. But if I waited and just wasted that morning time for me, and I saw clients in the morning and then waited to do it in the evening, I wouldn't be as motivated to do it by any means. So
Yeah.
Telling me that you go to sleep at 11:30 and wake up at like 6?
yeah.
You're a psychopath. Like,
yeah.
I so wish I was a morning person, like
Oh,
so badly.
Person.
What?
I didn't say I was a morning person.
I know,
Morning
but you're
person
like
is like,
utilizing the whole
when
day.
I wake up, I am not energetic. I need a moment. I need my coffee. Like, I also walk my dog. And that's like 10 minutes of me moving around and doing stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I need that 10 minutes to move around, like to have me time before I come back into the apartment, go from there and get started. But yeah, it's very quiet throughout that entire hour.
Yeah, and the dog's also, the risk is the dog's gonna piss in the house or whatever. So
correct.
like,
So it's like there's that
I don't want to have to clean up piss.
correct.
So
The sense of urgency again. You have that sense of urgency. Like, and again, we don't typically accomplish goals or do things until there is that sense of urgency. So for me, yeah, walking him, like I have to get up. As soon as I get out of bed, he sees me, he's ready to go. So it's like I have to take him out. But me walking, that kind of gives me some energy. But no, I wouldn't say that I'm still not a morning person by any means.
I mean, you've seen
Yeah,
me in the
more like,
morning.
I think the term is a pigeon, like an afternoon person.
Oh yeah.
Is the phrase for afternoon.
Hmm.
Because you have night
Oh,
owl, you have some kind of bird in the morning, and I think pigeon is the one for the afternoon.
The early bird gets the worm.
Early bird, thank you. Yeah, so early bird, not a specific bird. And then there's like pigeon for the afternoon. So yeah, you can Google that. Since
Yeah,
we
but you know
What kind of bird would be in the morning?
yeah.
The crow feasts on the bird that gets hit by the car that is driving while drowsy.
Okay.
Yeah.
Answer your question. I don't even know if I kind of rambled.
No, I love all of this. Also, I'd like Josh has seen me when I first wake up in the morning, because he's always there with Rachel, and me, Rachel, and Ryan are all not morning people, and
I feel like I'm there when like you guys are all like. I feel like Rachel's like. So normally I'll meet Rachel at 10.
I'll be rolling out of bed.
Just got out of bed. She did her mobility work and stuff like that. She's laying on the floor by the time I like poke my head through the side window and wave. And then probably like 30 minutes later, Ryan will come out of the bedroom, get straight into the shower.
That is not unrealistic.
No, it's not. It's yeah.
So I do sometimes roll out of bed at 10. Like.
But actually, I feel like if you're it's a work day, you're usually going straight into your meetings and stuff like that. Because I think they start at 9ish or whatever.
9:30 maybe.
And then yeah, when Becca's there, I feel like you come strolling in. You're like, hey, straight to the shower or whatever, use the bathroom, and like. Yeah. Respectful. It's kind of like knowing, yeah, I know you're not a morning person, so kind of like say hey and move on.
like, hi.
Yeah. Wait till you have your caffeine.
Well, I don't drink caffeine, and I think that, or in the morning at least, and I think that that's actually, people have called me psychopath. Like, they're like, how do you not function in the morning? I'm like, bro, I wake up at 11:30. Like, I don't even see the morning, okay?
Like, no, I and say my partner Susie listens to this at some point or watches this part, I will call her psycho for the mere fact that like she is a person that does not need caffeine and can wake up energetic as can be, like bouncing around, talking nonstop, full of jokes, like sliding into the room on her socks or something like that, like just ready to go with the day. And I'm like,
how many hours of sleep does she get?
Oh, she goes to bed. So she gets ready for bed at 8:30. She's in bed by 9. She'll read a book or whatever for a little bit, but no matter what, she's probably passed out by 9. 9:15 is the super latest.
Oh wow.
And she'll get up, like I said.
Well, that's a lot more sleep than you're getting.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. And that's definitely one reason. But even like when we were traveling with the Santa Fe and whatnot, sleeping the same hours, she just naturally is just like a beautiful human of energy, like constantly just constant ball of energy, 24/7.
That sounds like a morning person to me.
But it's 24/7. Even when I get home after this, we're probably almost at 9 o'clock now.
She's going to be asleep.
Well, I was going to say she's probably almost asleep now, but she'll wait up. She'll still have so much energy still. Like, no matter what, she's always full of energy and whatnot.
Josh, does she have a storage room somewhere with, like, dead people in it? Because you would best be checking.
I she might. I don't know.
You best be checking.
Like,
That's where she's going for her morning appointment.
It's not that she doesn't drink caffeine. She does drink caffeine. but she doesn't need it. Like she can go without, like, if I make her, we talked about like that positive energy tea before, I'll put 2 bags in the morning for her. She won't even drink it until like she leaves, and she'll just put it in a mug to go. And I'm like, you still have so much energy. Like, how?
Mm-hmm.
Who are you?
I used to have a job that I used to work for a painting company, and I used to get to the office at 6 a.m. And all the painters would show up at like 7 a.m. and I would literally like walk into my office and just like slump into the chair and just like sleep on the desk until 7 a.m.
Yeah.
And we had one person that started working there who had worked there in the past, but she was exactly like your person, and she would come in at 6 a.m. on her own, just cuz. And
Yeah.
I had to tell her, I was like, I need you to come in at 7. You can't be here at 6. I
This
can't
is my
handle
time.
you.
Can't be here.
I'm gonna kill you.
So it's
Warlock.
also thinking about different personalities, but also thinking about people's sleep patterns. Because even as Ryan pointed out, you just said, well, she's also sleeping 4+ hours more than you, so that's an
Yeah.
option and whatnot.
Or quality of sleep.
Yeah, exactly. So thinking about the quality of sleep, thinking about the quantity of sleep, whichever one is ensuring that you're getting plenty of sleep. So that girl in particular, like if she's getting there at 6 a.m., I can imagine she probably got a ton of sleep prior. She's feeling good. She probably also like lacks stress in her life as a whole. Like stress is huge on us as well in terms of like how it impacts our exhaustion, just like things we think about 24/7. Yeah, there's so many things that impact like how we're a morning person, or like we don't have enough sleep, so on and so forth.
How does caffeine, like, is there I would guess there's kind of a curve of like how optimal it is to help you, and then there's like a tail end of it of like where it wears off, or where you kind of hit a low. I'm thinking like a sugar high, sugar low, or
exactly.
Does caffeine work in that way too?
Totally.
Because some people might be like, well, I need to get in the studio, so I need to have some coffee to like hold me through. Or is there an amount that is optimal?
I couldn't tell you the amount. I'd have to look that up. I don't know the exact amount that one, and I feel like it's actually gonna. So actually, I'll preface this and say that it will differ per individual, because people can handle, metabolize caffeine differently per person. So somebody who, like for me, I can metabolize caffeine very well. I can drink a bunch before bed still and go straight to sleep. But also, it's probably like, well, you also only get 5 hours of sleep, so therefore you're just exhausted going to bed. But thinking about, I'll go for a short ramble. How much caffeine? If you take in too much caffeine, it's going to do the opposite of give you energy. It's actually going to do the complete opposite. It's kind of like that sugar low you mentioned before. That's going to have that same impact. Also thinking about how much caffeine you drink prior to going to bed will impact your sleep as well. So caffeine can stay up in your system for up to 7 hours. For somebody who's like, oh, I'm going to have my latte and caffeine at 4 p.m., but I'm going to bed or trying to go into bed at 8, well, you're not going to be ready for bed by any means. So there's an optimal amount of how much one should drink. So you're thinking about caffeine. What is a black tea like? 70 milligrams or
something like that.
Caffeine,
yeah,
or
I was thinking 50 or
50
to 75 maybe.
Yeah, I think coffee's the strongest at like 75ish or whatever. I think you said 50, so that actually sounds right. Now I think it's black tea and green tea. Is that right? Like the
green tea's lower, and herbal tea,
Yeah, so green tea, black tea, coffee. They're all different milligrams and whatnot. But yeah, so it's like I couldn't tell you how much one needs, because it's differs for every person. But yeah, there's gonna be an optimal amount. But I think it's more like being aware of yourself, of knowing like, oh, if I have this amount at this time of the day, I totally am gonna crash for this. But if you need caffeine in the sense of like to get started doing something, it also might even be a different type of caffeine. Like for me, coffee doesn't really give me energy anymore the way I drink a black tea now. So I don't know if it's like different type of like quality, if you will, or whatever. But like I feel more energized drinking one of those positive energy teas or whatever versus a black coffee.
Is it also a change of scenery for you? Like you haven't had tea for so long that it's a new kind of enjoyable habit you're building, versus, oh, I strictly it's a means to an end for the coffee because you've just been doing it for years, and it's
Right.
it's not that you're enjoying the selecting of the
Right.
coffee
So you're
and the
saying more
making
of
of
like
it.
an internal stimulus of like, ooh, this tea is new and I haven't had it in a while, so therefore I'm feeling more like motivated, energized, so on and so forth because it's like
or you
new.
choose it based on the
It's
flavor
a good,
that
yeah,
that
and that's
you're
why I say
going.
like caffeine can have totally different impacts on everybody in terms of like what it is, so on and so forth.
Mhm.
Is it actually like the flavor of it, and you're like, oh my god, this is so good, and now I'm feeling more energized because like this
Mhm.
flavor, and also even thinking about hydration. Like sometimes people need energy or feel more energized. In reality, they're dehydrated, and so once you have that hydration, you're like, oh, I feel so much better. But in reality, it's because you just had fluids and like you were super dehydrated before. So, yeah. So to answer your question, I couldn't tell you exactly like what the number is in terms of like how much caffeine requires for somebody. But yes, there is that ebb and flow in relation to sugar. We have that sugar like up and downer, if you will, or the the ebb and flow. We'll go with that. In relation to caffeine's the same thing. Yeah.
Okay.
But to us talking about sleep, I would definitely say be mindful of how much caffeine you're drinking before bedtime, because that's going to impact your sleep quality as a whole. Because a lot of people, when they lay down to go to bed, you may fall asleep, but it's not going to be super deep sleep by any means because the caffeine's still in your system.
How long does it take to like get to deep
Usually
sleep?
how long does it take? It varies for everybody as well. Again, it's even thinking about like room temperature. Like optimal room temperature is around 64 to 65 degrees for most people. Yeah.
Yeah.
But no, that you need the
Becca, what's the room temperature when you're in a van and it's like 33 degrees out?
33 degrees.
And I can
What
imagine,
is there a negative of how low it is, or does it
probably like
increase or
yeah,
get
I'm sure
better?
there's probably is, but I feel like some of the research that I've looked at and whatnot, typically 65 is we'll say it's the optimal
Okay.
for sleep and whatnot. If it's too high above 70, typically when you get to like I forget age, like latter 60s, 70s plus, you can typically sleep in an environment where it's more 70 degrees plus, and you're fine with it.
Is that because your body
So
temperature is
I was
naturally
gonna say
a little
naturally
bit,
it's a
you
little
run
bit
colder?
right. So I think it's more of that and how your body's metabolizing things. I think how your temperature as a whole is different at that time. Whereas most people will say in our age group and whatnot, 64, 65, 66, like the middle 60s is most optimal. But we need that because if our body normal range is 98.6, right? So we need a colder temperature. There's like a mathematical formula of like how you break it down and whatnot. But as the temperature decreases from 98.6, or I'm sorry, in order to reduce the temperature from 98.6 to a core temperature that you actually sleep optimally, like they found that 65-ish degrees was like the most optimal for you to fall asleep or whatever. So yeah. How do we get on this conversation of temperature?
Brian asked it.
It's talk about caffeine. And then I related that to sleep and whatnot. See, I told you it's for ADHD.
I think it was about. I think I asked how quickly can you get into deep sleep, but
deep
I
sleep,
think
yeah.
there was also
so I said
quality of sleep.
So I said that the temperature of what's most optimal for getting into deep sleep and whatnot is around that 65 degrees. So you have multiple variants of like what actually impacts you getting quality of sleep. Is there lots of like, do you sleep better with white noise? Most people usually do. Like good quality white noise. So having that on, having your room set at 65-ish or whatever. Having those factors helping you, like no caffeine in your system and whatnot.
The white light part, the phone, and those kind of
So
stimulus.
white noise, yeah. I was like white light, white noise.
I was thinking you said white noise, but I was also thinking phone and phone usage.
So white noise, having your phone off, having your phone away from you, whatnot, so you're not like apt to reach for it. Having the room be completely dark, like those are all gonna be factors like helping one get into deep sleep. So what I was saying is kind of like there is that factor of that would impact how quick you get into deep sleep. So, but if somebody was in like the most optimal environment in that terms, we'll say that. I don't know in terms of like
because some people would say like, well,
and I think
there's so many variables of like, do you get, I usually
each night as well. Like,
yeah, I might normally go up to sleep at 1 a.m.
Right.
And then like actually fall asleep maybe 1:30 or 2.
Right.
And then it's like, okay, what are the variables you can play with because you're gonna have to get up around 9 or 9:30.
Correct.
So like, do you set your expectation that you're gonna get out of the studio sooner, or do you Because with the 9-to-5 job, you only have so much flexibility in
Also,
what
if you have a
start
family
time
as well.
is. Yeah.
Like, I'm sure a lot of people here have families and stuff like that. So it's like you're cooking dinner or whatever, and you're having time with your kids or your wife and your partner and whatnot. So there's a lot of variables to that, and sometimes it's not. So we're gonna forego the question of deep sleep, and we're talking about sleep in general. Excuse me. And for some people, it's a matter of like, what is my priority right now? And it might be foregoing sleep. Like I forego sleep and I get my 5 to 6 hours for the mere fact that so in a past relationship, I did not put myself first. I didn't take care of myself. I was focused purely on building a business. Took myself out of the relationship equation, so on and so forth. But now it's more of like I recognize going through therapy, etc. Highly recommend therapy, everybody who's listening. Doing all this self-work that it's like my priority is in a relationship now. And so like for me, it's the reason why I go to bed late now.
Priority is in a relationship?
In a relationship,
okay,
correct. Yeah. So the priority being that. So now after my last client, my priority then is to spend time with Susie and stuff like that and actually be present in the relationship. Once she goes to bed at 8:30, 9 o'clock, that's when I then go do what I need to do to take care of my business, which is messaging people, building programs, so on and so forth, which is why I forego sleep in that manner. Like, that's my non-negotiable for me. It's like, dude, you're trying to build something. You're also trying to be present in a relationship. Therefore, I'm okay with getting my 6 hours.
And
like,
you're also going to have the weight of whatever you did the entire day up until that 8 p.m. That's going to also potentially weigh on you and impact the quality of your work once you hit 8 p.m. to when you go to sleep.
And also my non-negotiable too is like I don't set an alarm on the weekends. So I may get like 10 to 12 hours on Saturday and Sunday. Like we still go to bed at 9:30 on a Friday night. And I won't get up until 9:30 the next morning. So like that's also my non-negotiable of like not necessarily like, oh, I'm sleeping to make up time. You don't make up time in that manner by sleeping in extra on the weekends, but I am going to feel a little bit better in doing so.
Okay. And like also to add to that, like I am still getting over burnout after 3 years, and I also don't set an alarm anymore. Like I don't set an alarm at all, and I just wake up when I wake up. I sleep more than babies. I sleep so freaking much. I probably sleep 15 hours a night.
15 hours. You went to sleep late though. You at least go to sleep at. I mean, when you were in Indy, you wouldn't go to sleep until at least midnight.
That's true.
Like you don't go to sleep early. Would you say you go to sleep early? I feel like you go to sleep late.
I go to sleep like midnight, 1 o'clock. But then I get up at like 11:30, 12. So I guess I get 12.
Yeah.
Like 12 hours. But like yesterday, I slept for 4 hours. I took a nap. I just took a full sleep in the middle of the day.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many variables for everything that we do and whatnot. Even thinking about, I mean, do you feel like sleeping that long? And when I say long, I don't mean that as a bad thing. By any means, it's more of like when you think about 12 hours of sleep, is that something you're okay with?
It's something I have to do.
Yeah.
Because
then I wouldn't. Yeah. So I mean, and that's why I always say like when it comes to personal training or like my type of coaching, it's a matter of asking the questions of like, what are things that you want to change? So if it's a matter of like, oh, but I'm okay with 12 hours of sleep, then it's like, okay, let's not even talk about it. Let's move forward to something else.
Right. Because otherwise it feels like you're trimming time out of sleep. It's like, okay, well you've got to cut an hour out of your morning so you can work out more because otherwise you're taking time away from something else.
Yeah, but it's also if like you need those 12 hours of sleep, that's your non-negotiable. And so when somebody in my world starts to like try to change that and say 12 hours of sleep, well, let's fix that. That becomes more of I'm pushing myself onto you because in my world I'm biased and I think this is the end all be all and you should only be getting 8 hours of sleep or whatever the magic number is for that person. So yeah, I'm just gonna say like if you think 12 hours is good for you and you're like, dude, this is what I need, that's for me. Sweet.
Yeah, like
move on.
I know that if I was operating at a normal, like I was operating in a healthy body, like a healthy body that does not have adrenal fatigue, that does not have
1000%.
like, that does not have depression, that does not have burnout, all that stuff, 7 hours is perfect for me. Right.
And that's kind of what I was alluding to as well. Because when I said this 12 hours, I was like, typically people who sleep 12 hours or more and feel like they constantly need to sleep in that manner, there's a lot happening in the body as a whole. So you've mentioned the metabolic, you've mentioned the depression and whatnot, the burnout, so on and so forth. So like you already are aware of like why you need the sleep and whatnot. So as long as you're aware of why you need it and like you're doing it and it works for you, that's perfect.
Right. And for people that are like getting down on themselves, you have to realize that sometimes you need it.
You need
I
it,
think
1,000%.
Yeah. I have a really out of left field question. Surprise, surprise. Okay. Have you ever used one of those hula hoop weighted thingies? Because I kind of really want to get one, and you know what I'm talking about? Like what is it called, Ryan? It's like the
I don't know what it is, but you've talked about it, but I don't exactly know what it is. But you said it's like a hula hoop, but it's got a weight in it, so I guess it helps you hula longer or easier, maybe.
It like hooks onto your waist, and then you like swing this weight around your hips, and it looks like a freaking blast. And
so yeah, I know what you're talking about, and I do think that the weight of it is aiding in the kind of like forces, like making it easier to do it. Per the video you sent me earlier, finding the things you enjoy, the guys dancing on a treadmill and doing all this stuff. If that's what brings you joy, 1,000% do it. If people enjoy dancing or whatnot, go do dancing. Go do whatever you enjoy. What was your question?
Have you ever used one?
No.
Oh, well, you're no help.
What were you going to ask? Like, does it actually work, or like?
Yeah, I was going to ask if it like
works in what way?
I guess, would it like fuck me up, or would it like help me?
In what way? Like
fuck
physically?
You up in what way?
Would it throw my back out or something? Like,
I mean, unless you're trying to seek out some like 20-pound hula hoop. No, I think like again, I think the idea of the weighted one isn't a matter of like building muscle, weight loss, or whatever the trend may be. I think it's more a matter of like aiding one and creating the hula hoop ability to actually hula hoop. No, so what is your question to it in regard to it? And when you say does it help? Help with what?
I guess just, well, maybe not help, but I don't want to buy something that's just like a fucking Instagram scam. I just want to.
What's the Instagram scam? Like what's the headline title, the call to action of it, or like what?
I think it's just meant to be fun,
it's
right?
Meant to be fun.
It's not promoting to be like an exercise item, right?
It is. It's promoting to be like an exercise item.
Well, so we say exercise. Exercise can be defined as just movement and as a whole. So now, if it's one of the, I'll say it's spam if it's saying that like it's gonna help you put on muscle, or it's gonna help you lose 15 pounds or something like that.
Hey everybody. We took a little break from the discussion because we either forgot to put the ad in, or we just didn't want to break the conversation up and, get away from whatever was going on to talk about L&L in the moment. So we're putting it in here. Today I'm talking about the zone control from L&L kilns. So what that means is most kilns have a single zone where you only have one thermocouple, and that thermocouple is reading for the entire kiln. It's doing its best to fire consistently, but it may not fire the exact same temperature from top to bottom because it's only got one reading in that kiln with that one thermocouple. Most L&Ls are going to have multiple thermocouples depending on the amount of space you have in it. So for instance, I have an E23T and it has 3 thermocouples. So what I can expect is as the kiln is firing, it is going to adjust the temperature in those different zones based on where those thermocouples are, top, middle, bottom. And if it sees that a section is lagging behind, it's a little cooler, it needs to catch up, it's going to adjust on the fly. It's going to do that on its own, and it's going to produce more consistent results from top to bottom in that kiln because of those various thermocouples as well as the controller that's going to adjust on the fly. So that's the benefit of the zone control. I have another kiln. It's got a single thermocouple, and I might have results where I've seen results where the top might be at cone 5 and the bottom might be at cone 6 and the middle might be at cone 6. That thermocouple is going to be typically right in the middle, It is an equivalent size kiln to my bigger one. It's like a 7 cubic foot, and I think my bigger one is 7 or 10, something like that. And I'm gonna see that there's a little bit of variability in that kiln that has a single thermocouple. So if you're interested and you're looking for another reason to buy an L&L kiln, zone control is one of those reasons that you can consider to get more consistent firings. And thanks so much for listening. Thanks so much, L&L. And if you'd like to find that and get yourself an L&L kiln or scout out what options they have available, you can see that all at hotkilns.com. Hotkilns.com. All right, let's get back to the discussion, and thanks so much.
There is a catch to that because, I mean, as we increase movement, if you will, and I use that term loosely in terms of like if one is not moving as much, you're trying to get more movement in, and you start doing hula hoop, which now you're getting more steps in, you're moving your body, so on and so forth, in relation to somebody who wasn't, then yeah, it would help fat loss as a whole because you're creating more movement. So again, I'd have to like read the actual headline of it, but yeah, it is increasing exercise, if you will, because you are dancing more. But because it's weighted or not, that's not really like is going to increase or decrease one's ability to do such. If that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not looking. I say I'm not looking to lose weight, mostly because I'm 33 and I've done my best. But but like, yeah, the whole grab of like you'll lose this much weight doesn't ever appeal to me because
that's not a motivator for you when you.
So I think to your question, if the headline of it, the eye-catching headline, is helps you exercise more, then I would say it probably does, but only because it's a hula hoop, not necessarily because it's a weighted hula hoop.
Yeah.
I don't think it's a bad thing to have. Worst case scenario, like it's like $20 or something like that. You just drop it off at Goodwill if you don't like it.
True that.
True that.
Man, this is what I'm talking about. This stupid cat has the entire sands of Arizona to take a shit in, and he comes into his litter box. Asshole.
And the litter is not cheap, from what you said, right? It's a fancy litter kind of.
He's probably like, Mom, you've created this habit in me to use the litter box, and technically this is your fault.
He didn't use litter box for 6 months, and then all of a sudden we get to Utah, and he's like, "This sand isn't good enough." Like, I don't have a nice, pretty lawn to poop on.
So, I have a question related to running the small business and actually making it like, I want to say more sustainable. Like, with how much is your physical health and your ability, maybe like, I want to say doing like weighted exercises versus like cardio, but like your body health going to influence and impact like whether you can, I want to say, physically do the work of like throwing on the wheel and throwing the pieces and getting that stuff done, as well as just like mentally going through what it takes to like run the small business as well.
Yeah. No, I think fitness, and obviously I'm biased because I'm in this world or whatever, but I do think that fitness is kind of like a, I had the word and I totally lost it. Fitness, I mean, it aids in energy. So as you are exercising more, it gives you more energy to do things. But also thinking about, for you guys in pottery and whatnot, you're thinking about muscle imbalances. So if you're constantly hunched over in this position and whatnot, you're going to have imbalances in pain and whatnot in certain areas over time. You may not feel it now, but at some point you will. But by doing strength training and whatnot in the right areas for you will help kind of like overcome that muscle bias, muscle imbalance, so on and so forth. So I think that at the end of the day, if you're trying to, and especially thinking about arthritis, you're trying to avoid inflammation and certain like diseases as such, you want to implement that. So like that's going to help your longevity and whatnot, so that you're not feeling like crap 1 year down the road, 2 years down the road, etc. Like shoulder pain, upper back pain, thoracic region and whatnot, neck pain, hand, etc. So if you're not kind of like creating that strength training, if you will, or just like giving yourself the mobility and strength in certain areas that you need in opposition of what you're stuck in doing. So you guys are typically stuck in this flexed position. So we need to strengthen more than anything these extensors to get your hands back. So I think to answer your question as a whole, I think if you're not doing strength training, cardio, etc., you're doing yourself a disservice and whatnot, because cardio especially is going to create energy for you to have the stamina to be able to like sit at the wheel for prolonged periods of time and do all of that, as well as the strength training in order to overcome that muscle imbalance, like I said, the flexion versus extension of the hand.
What if someone was to say, hey, I'm doing the exercise by actually making the work?
Say that again?
What if somebody was to say, hey, I'm actually exercising by doing the actual making of the work?
Does somebody actually say that?
Well, I was thinking like some people might be like, well, I don't need to exercise separately from the work because the work is physically demanding itself. Yeah. Like if you were, I don't know, if you were physically digging holes or something, like you are doing the work. Correct. Rather than training yourself so that you can physically do the work better. I
was trying to be funny. It totally failed. Yeah. So in that case, I would state that if you're already doing the movement and whatnot, and you feel that that is movement for you, that's great. Because for some people, it's not a matter of like, I don't want to spend my entire day actually strength training or doing cardio or whatever. But I would say switching the flipping the switch, if you will, instead of looking at it as like exercise for you guys and whatnot, think of it as like the ability to prolong your ability to do what you're doing and what you're passionate about. Not thinking of it as like, oh, I gotta go do deadlifts and so on and so forth, or rows or push-ups. Instead, think of it as like, if I want to do this forever, I'm trying to create stability and just optimal tension throughout my body by doing the opposition of what I'm doing so I can continue doing it. So it becomes more, we'll use the word loosely, more physical therapy related, more mobility, more accessories to what you're doing so that you can prolong what you're doing. Okay. Does that make sense? Yeah. So it may not be a matter of like, I need to go work out for an hour. It may be like, I need to do my exercises to help for 15 minutes or whatever to help me sustain X, Y, Z. So I think it depends on the individual of like, this is kind of what I was saying about like the mom who has 2 kids and is working a full-time job and whatnot. She's probably going to be more apt to do a 15 to 20 minute workout versus me telling her to do an hour workout because she doesn't have that kind of time. So whoever's listening and says like, yeah, but I am exercising while I'm doing this. Totally. If that's your movement and whatnot. Now, technically for the cardiovascular system, you need cardio. You need to do actually some form of movement and whatnot. Blood pumping, so on and so forth.
And that could wedging the clay that, let's say you're wedging 5 pounds of clay, and that is physically demanding on your arms, your triceps, your biceps. Strength
training than anything. I wouldn't necessarily put that in the cardio realm. Yes, you are doing it for a prolonged period of time.
Or you're throwing a pot that's 10 pounds of clay and it's physically demanding to do it. That's still physical. That's still more strength than anything.
Because even as you're rolling it and whatnot, so as I bring it into me, I'm doing more of a bicep flexion and whatnot, elbow flexion, if you will, working biceps and whatnot. So I wouldn't say necessarily it's like more cardio, because cardio is defined more as like a moderate intensity, if you will, like over time. So 150 minutes per week is what's recommended. Whether that's walking, so on and so forth. I feel like I personally put that more in the strength training world, like in that encompassing it and whatnot. But again, we can look at what I'm trying to flip the switch again of going back to it as, well, I'm already doing this work. Why do I need to do more? You can put your walking in as your breaks and whatnot so that you can think about, if I'm stuck in this erected position, flexed position forward, me going for a walk is going to help me get out of that position and get the muscles active and whatnot to overcome that lordosis, me flex low back and whatnot, or kyphotic posture of you being rounded shoulders or anything like that, keeping you more erected when you walk. So there's going to be more heart demand when your heart's pumping a little bit more when you're going for that walk and whatnot, consistently and whatnot. If that makes sense.
Okay. Would it matter if you do it before, middle, after? What? If you go for a walk, let's say you go for a walk before you work in the studio, or in the middle of, it sounds like in the middle of is good to like just kind of get your muscles back acclimated back to normal.
I think yes, incorporating the walking in between, like while you're actually doing the work, is going to aid in that kind of like spine and whatnot, better posture and whatnot, giving you a break from doing what you're doing so that you are more productive when you come back into it. Because you're also, there's even research out there looking at productivity. If one goes out and does exercise prior to doing X, Y, Z. So for me, it was like ADHD related. I looked at a bunch of research at grad school. So that's where I was like struggling the most, because you're all of a sudden you're just doing all this more work than even in undergrad. So I was like, how do you stay focused? And I came across research that was like, when you when you do moderate to rigorous activity, you'll have up to 4 hours of focus. So for me, it was like, okay, I'm going to work out before I need to go do stuff, before I go study, before I go do whatever I need to stay focused on, whether it was being in the lab, etc. That was my time to focus. So it could be, if you're looking at it the way of like, I need to stay focused, you might work out beforehand and then go in it for the focus aspect.
Which seems sort of counter, because you would think, well, I'm going to be
Well, because you're already
exhausted after I
exhausted
work out.
Well, when I say it, I don't mean like going super hard.
Yeah, you said
Going
medium,
for a walk,
mild to
Right.
medium.
So you might go for a walk and whatnot to get the blood flowing and whatnot to help increase brain activity, productivity and whatnot. Before throwing, I mean, I wouldn't go out and do like some super hard strength training workout and whatnot, and then go into, because yeah, that's going to be super counterproductive.
Yeah.
For sure. Now in terms of like, so I sent you guys that article or the Word document. So somebody had messaged and was kind of like, hey, I have arthritis in my hands. I kind of did this massive ramble of like, oh, here are things that you could be doing and whatnot. But in that, so kind of per your question of like what I should be doing prior, I do believe that you guys should be definitely warming up in some manner. So I don't know if like, do you do warm ups or anything like that, or do like do anything, or you just jump straight in and?
Usually my
Is there
warm
a
up would be throwing something that's very easy and manageable.
Okay.
That does not take a lot of effort, and that's kind of a confidence builder, as well as a feeling productive,
Right.
and just not really strenuous on the hands. Like, I'm not going to start throwing a 4-pound ball of clay when I get in the studio. Yesterday
Right. So that is your warm up.
I threw some like 1 pound or 1.5 pound balls
Right.
first, just to get acclimated.
Right.
So
So
that's my warm up. I don't know, Becca, do you do any kind of warm up or anything small or?
I feel like I'm constantly stretching my hands. And but no.
But no.
Well, most of her stuff now is earrings, so it's not physically demanding to make them, right, Becca? It's
right. I do stretch my back a little bit more and like do good stretches before I start my day, kind of. But I'm typically mostly stretching my hands. I do the rubber band thing with my hands. That's the biggest thing for me.
Is that the extensors?
Yeah. And I actually just, because it's getting a little bit worse, I just bought like a thingy on Amazon just so that I can start strengthening my hands a little bit better.
Right.
It was like $7 or whatever with the hand extenders and then a squeezy ball and like, so that's the biggest thing for me. And I think because I have carpal tunnel and I have had it for such a long time,
Right.
that I'm just used to, like, whenever I drive, I'm always just like stretching my hands. So
yeah. And there is, I mean, you can either like get into like the balance of doing something. There is a balance of like doing not a balance. There is a point of like doing too much stretching.
right.
So I did a post the other day on people who have tight hamstrings and constantly feel they have tight hamstrings. And there is a point of stretching too much where the muscle is just constantly stretched and you keep thinking you need to stretch it, but it's already in a stretched state. So my example for hamstrings is kind of like, if you're constantly laying on a couch or standing and whatnot, you don't necessarily need to stretch your hamstrings. Yet people typically think that like, because it feels tight, they need to keep stretching it. And so the opposition to that is strengthening it to help kind of like create that the contraction of the muscle, to build the muscle and whatnot. So it becomes the opposition to it. But it sounds like you're already doing that because you're doing your ball squeezes and stuff, which helps with that. You blow up the band. Is that for flexion as well?
What'd you just say? Is that what?
You had a band for your extension, and then you said you just bought like a $7 item?
That's like a squeezy one. It's a squeezy one.
Okay.
And then I think it must be like a weighted clenching, like if you were to pull the trigger on a gun kind of thing.
Okay,
like
got it. Is it?
It's for your each finger kind of thing?
I think it's for all of them to squeeze that way.
Oh, so it's a grip. It's a full grip. So you're doing like more
grip. Yeah, grip.
Okay, got it. So they have individual ones, which I personally would probably recommend the Digi grip one, where it's kind of like they sell it in the guitar world. But you also can get physical therapy, so on and so forth. But it's basically each digit. I would probably recommend that more for you guys rather than just one as a whole, because then you're working each individual finger. There's always going
I
to be
think
when we do.
I got the each digit one that like goes out. I think it might go in too. But
The band.
yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, in terms of like that grip one, I would recommend the digi because there's always thinking about like compensation in some manner. Typically, one finger is probably going to be stronger than the other, and if we're using a grip, we can't really individualize that by any means. We're usually kind of like compensating from some other area and whatnot. So by having that individual one, we can no longer compensate, and instead we can individualize to whichever one's super weak and can like really do the work on their own without having assistance from all of them at once, if that makes sense.
Mhm.
Yeah, we used to when we were working at Gravesco, which was doing production at lunchtime. We all used to. One person went to a physical therapist, and so we did all of her routines with her,
Yeah.
and so we'd like find the door frame and like stretch the back, and
Okay.
then
Yeah. I was gonna
and
say
like
a normal stretch for the chest, but you got used it
or
back.
maybe yeah for the chest and like
Yeah.
stretch all the things, and then we do the hand one, and then we do we did like all the different ones at lunch just because it helps so much. It helps so much.
No,
And it
yeah,
go
I mean, I think just creating motion in the body as a whole, so that motion being muscle or mobility work. I mean, it's gonna behoove you to do it no matter what. So, kind of going back to the question of like, per the individual who feels that they are doing enough strength training for them or just exercise in general, I would flip the switch and just say like, think about it as more of physical therapy related, of like modalities and accessory to your work, so that you can do this for the long term. So otherwise, you're going to be, you always see kind of like at some point you always see those older individuals who are walking down the street. There's one in downtown Cincinnati. I'll see the guy every time. He's like bent from the hip all the way forward with his cane walking. And so I'm like, you don't want to get to that point because that typically, sure, you could say it's a spine. He might have been born with a deformity of some sort. But you don't want to get to the point where you're like stuck 24/7 in this position, pottery wise. And especially if you're also doing 8 hours of working as well, you're just going to constantly have pain sitting in this position, and you're just going to further. What's the word I'm looking for? Essentially, you're not being proactive. You're kind of like pushing toward this idea of being stuck in this forward without doing the opposition of getting you upright.
Mhm.
So it's not going to impact you if you're in your first like 1, 2, 5, whatever years and you're not doing it. However, if you think about the long term of it, 20 years down the road, you're probably going to regret it. So think of it more as physical therapy related in terms of like your body feeling better on down the road versus being instantaneous and whatnot now. So you're being more proactive than anything. So
I did get the individual. It's got like an individual grip one.
nice.
Looks like it. So
Yeah, I think I asked Danny Meisinger that similar question about do you physically do stuff to keep yourself able to work, because he makes the big pots, and he was saying yeah, he kind of uses the physical
It becomes
the workout as a way to have
right.
have it longer, because he's like 50 plus
Yeah.
years old and he's making these huge pots, and it's like, how do you maintain that?
Right. So thinking about strength training and whatnot, we're thinking about creating a demand on the body that is greater than what you're already doing. So for him, if he's dealing with 40-pound pots and whatnot, his strength training regimen, his workouts and whatnot, he's definitely lifting more than 40 pounds. So therefore, it's going to transfer over. It's going to be more transferable to his work life.
Or it's making things in sections of 25 pounds
so it's gonna,
at a time,
And I do think that per the individual who believes that what they are doing is exercise and whatnot, it's totally fine. But I think at some point you do need to be doing an exercise regimen to do is what you just said, so that you're building transferable skills so that you can do more of what you enjoy doing.
And it's not to bulk up.
It's not to bulk. No,
exactly. You're not gonna.
Yeah, and so like even like when you say that, I think about, I posted something yesterday about certain myths in the fitness industry, and one of them's like females who go into the gym feel that they're going to get bulky from weightlifting, and that's not true by any means. I mean, think about how long it took you to be a great potter. years. You're not just going to walk in the gym on day one, lift a weight, and get super bulky by any means. To do so as a female, especially, small ramble, that it requires so much, like, precise nutrition, requires so much volume and years of dedication to the gym to get in the state of getting bulky by any means. But also thinking about, like, that person's also probably taking testosterone boosting of some manner, because females don't have that much testosterone. And that's what you need for muscle building and whatnot. That's why it's so easy for a guy to build muscle, because we have a surplus amount of testosterone. So, yeah. So, yeah. So I like that you said that about the guy, because then it definitely makes it easier to state exactly why you should be doing strength training, because at the end of the day, one should be doing it so that you can do your job even better. So if he's
trying to not feel exhausted.
Yeah, exactly. That's why I said before, like, you doing cardio and lifting and whatnot, it's going to build more stamina and energy. And it's usually the opposition of what people think, like, oh, but if I work out, that's going to make me feel exhausted. And it's totally the opposite. You moving is going to create more energy and whatnot. There's probably a happy medium of, like, the type of workout that you're doing in terms of intensity. So if it's like high intensity interval training where you're going all out and giving everything you have and lifting, this part isn't necessarily high intensity interval training, but you're just lifting weights, lifting to say like 85% plus of your maximum repetition and whatnot, that's when we're getting to exhaustion. So, but the way I train people typically is not like that by any means. Like, if you go up to Rachel and talk to her and whatnot, she's not going to be exhausted and wasted the rest of the day. Like, we do it to a point of, let's reach that 1 to 3 reps in reserve. So that just means that, like, if you're doing a workout, you probably have 3 reps in the tank. We're just going to go ahead and stop. Because once you start going into, like, true failure, or you start going into, like, people who do 1 rep maxes all the time, you're going to do more harm to the joints and tendons of the muscle than good. So there's kind of like a happy medium of, like, staying in this intensity zone of not going.
Is it because your form is going to suffer? Because you're just overworking?
But you're creating over tension, if you will. There's too much tension put on the muscle. So when you have too much tension put on there, and I don't want to phrase this to put kind of like fear, like, oh, but what if I'm doing strength training wrong and now I'm creating this muscle damage? Most likely not, unless you've been doing this for years. You've been doing a bodybuilding competition style. You've been in, like, you've been introduced to it via, like, typically it's high schoolers in football and whatnot. A lot of them do like 1 to 3 rep maxes. Most people don't do this by any means. So that's why I'm like, I want to be cautious of saying it, so I don't put, like, fear in somebody who's getting started. So if that's the case, I would just say aim for a weight of a movement that you can do for between 8 to 12 reps of, and you feel you have 3 reps left in the tank. If that makes sense. That makes sense.
And I'm thinking, I was mixing up reps and sets. Individual, like,
acts
of doing the thing.
Correct. Correct, yes. So we have sets. Sets would be sets would be like the umbrella. Reps would follow underneath. So if we say a set, if I tell you, Ryan, do 3 sets of 15 push-ups, 1 set would be 15 reps. You take a break. You go to the next set, so on and so forth. Yeah.
Oh.
Keep it stupid simple, Josh.
Are there specific, I want to say stretches, but also exercises for the back that you would recommend people to do? I would guess the back would be a pretty level. I mean, you were talking about back pain, so, like, the back is necessary for all of our process of what we're working on.
Right. So typically, and yeah, it's also kind of like one of those things where, like, back pain can be multiple reasons why one has back pain. So if we think about, so even having weak glutes can contribute to back pain as well, because the glutes kind of sit below the low back, and they're more of kind of like the aid in stabilization and whatnot, and giving power to the back, if you will. Your claws. And so we want to strengthen the glutes, but we also want to, so you're thinking about stretching the back. We can do things like cat, cow, bird, dog. And I can give you guys, they're all goofy names, but I can give you guys videos that you can share with your audience and whatnot, so they can see, like, as I say this, it makes sense.
And these are without weight. You don't even need weight.
No, this is all mobility stuff. This is purely mobility. Like Rachel, I have her do this. She's done the same thing for 7+ years, mobility wise. And so by the time she does it, has learned it. And the reason why I teach people the same thing is so that if you're traveling and you're like, oh man, feeling super tight, you have a dedicated mobility system that you can just jump straight into, versus like, I need to get on YouTube and Google something or whatever. But this was something that I created. So when I give it to Rachel, this was something I created when I worked in the spine clinic, and we naturally went through all these movements. So kind of like when Becca said, like, one person went to physical therapy, we all just did their thing. This is the same idea. So cat, cow, bird, dog, those are like common ones.
Can you Google that?
Simple one. Can you explain a simple one or show a simple one?
Well, I think both of them are simple. Do you want to demonstrate?
Sure.
Actually, I'll you guys
demonstrate. You demonstrate, and I will tell people what you're doing.
Oh, this is good commentary.
Can I go pee?
Yes.
Yeah. I can actually demonstrate if you want while you're gone. Or Becca, should I just start moving and you do the commentary?
Yes.
Okay. I will go through the motions. I'm trying to make sure the chair's not in the way. Where's a good optimal spot?
Right in the middle, right there.
Trying to see. All right. So we'll go with cat cow first.
Okay.
I'll do the motion and then you're gonna commentate.
Okay. He's on the ground and he looks like he's pushing his back upward, and he's on his knees. Okay, on his knees and hands, and he's pushing his back up towards the clouds. And he looks like a hunchback. And then he's going down and he's making his back like curved downward, and I feel like it reminds me of like downward dog. Like,
yeah. So downward dog would be more of this.
Oh, never mind. Your knees are on the ground.
Wait, no, never mind. So this is, so we call this kind of like all fours. We're down here.
Okay.
My back's kind of hyperextended, if you will. So I have more of a pelvic tilt. They kind of like give me more of that arch. And in doing so, when we look at the spine, our vertebral discs have we have our discs, our spine. And below and above each one, we have kind of like this intervertebral disc, which is basically jelly. Or my PT would always describe it as jelly, if you will. But in doing so, when I press downward in this hyperextended position, I'm kind of like pushing the jelly back into the spine. Because when we're constantly in this motion of like throwing your wheels and stuff like that, think of it as like I'm pushing the jelly out of the vertebrae, your vertebral discs and stuff like that. And then as I come up, I'm pushing the jelly out, pushing the jelly back in, so on and so forth. So I'm just creating more mobility in the spine than anything. And mobility, so it's kind of like motion is lotion when we do that. I'm back.
Wait, okay. When he has his belly towards the floor, he looks like one of those horses that somebody sat on forever and ever and ever, and they're like 75 years old.
Yeah. And there's always different. Some people call it cat cow, some people call it cat camel.
Okay.
I always say cat cow. I think that's more logical. So yeah, just this motion here. I'll demonstrate since Ryan's here now. You missed the great analogy, so you're gonna have to. The great demonstration or commentary by Becca, so you have to listen back. So basically, I'm gonna be in this state here. So when I'm in this up position, I'm hyperextending the spine, creating this downward dip, if you will. And pushing all the jelly from my vertebral discs back into place. So here my chest is going to be raised, my head's looking forward. You're also kind of like helping with the scapula, your shoulder blade. So you're creating some mobility and motion in there. And then as I come up, I'm getting more of a pelvic tilt here, and I'm getting a low back stretch in, but I'm also pushing my thoracic region up as much as I can. The head's going to come down, and I'm now almost trying to look at my knees or like even crotch area. So here. So then I get a nice stretch from my neck all the way down. Because even if you're in this position here and you're stuck there for hours at a time, you're creating more tension. Even though if you are stretched, if you will, you're creating more tension by staying in that one position. So here we're creating motion throughout the whole thing by doing both motions. So again, I'm here, and I'm just going back and forth and getting motion in my entire spine from cervical, thoracic, and lumbar region. So yeah.
How many times would you do that?
10 times-ish, 8 to 10.
So one motion to the other motion is one.
Yep. Starting point would be here.
Starting point would be where you're curved downward, and then ending point would be where you're the hunchback.
Correct. So as soon as I go back into this position, I've finished my rep.
That's one.
And I'm going back to start my next one. We'll go from there.
It's almost like sucking in your belly. Like letting go of your belly.
You're sucking in your belly, if you will. Yeah, same thing.
Are you counting to like hold the position for a period of time, or are you just being very conscious to do it slow?
Conscious, yeah.
And like getting the full
I like
extension.
to have people think about more about that awareness of what they're doing and like what they're feeling. So even for me, so The way I describe it typically is like we've all been to a beach. We all typically see somebody who has like little dimples on the bottom of their backs. That's around the SI joint area. And so what I like to do when I do this cat-cow is sometimes even, so when I say like thinking about how you're feeling and whatnot, I'll do like a lateral hip shift to kind of open those up and whatnot and give my actual hips a motion as well. So again, if I'm in this upward position, I might kind of like move my hips back and forth. Actually, my kind of like area kind of just popped. I don't know if you heard or not.
I didn't hear it.
But so I'm in there, just creating
For
some.
all of you not watching at home, he is shaking his booty.
Shaking my booty. Not twerking, but I'm shaking my booty for sure. But I'm just kind of going lateral left to right. But I'm not only getting hip movement in, but also lumbar, so that low back. I'm getting movement in there. A lot of people fear moving their spine in certain ways. The spine is meant to move in all directions. So even your lateral bends and stuff like that, contouring against the wall, so on and so forth. So you should be trying to move and kind of like get into different positions. So as I do this kind of like rotation movement here, I'll just go and get into the next motion. I feel like I should have wore actual gym shorts of some sort. Anyway.
I was going to say, you look very uncomfortable right now.
I'm in jeans too that are very tight.
Yeah. So since I did that rotation movement, I'll go ahead and demonstrate the other one because this actual one is one you should do it. I'll say it's the third exercise you should do. The second one's a bird dog, and I'll show you that after this one. But the spine needs rotation and whatnot. It needs rotation movement. Otherwise, a lot of times we get super stiff. So this is a half kneeling thoracic rotation. I'll demonstrate. Becca commentary. I'll do a view this way because you're probably going to get more out of seeing what I'm doing. Otherwise, is this good?
Yeah.
You can see him fine.
All right.
Okay, so he looks like he's almost in a lunge position. So his left knee is on the ground, his right knee is up, but it's to the side a little bit. His right knee is to the side a little bit, and
like
then his
outside
hands
his
are
shoulder. It's not straight with his shoulder. It's like
not straight, and his hands are straight down onto the floor. So his right knee is almost like right next to his right shoulder.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Thank you. And now he's taking his right hand and he's moving it up like a dancer.
Like Atlas. I don't know.
He looks like he's about to fly away.
It looks kind of like when you do a side plank. Like if you were to keep one hand on the ground and then one hand up, straight up in the air.
So we can do this motion, and if you want to get more motion out of it, you go from here and you reach all the way through.
And then so if you have your right hand straight into the air and your left hand's on the floor, then you take it all the way down and move it past your chest.
In front of the right knee.
In front of the right knee, past your chest, and then point to the other side.
And I'm going under my left armpit.
Yes, under your left armpit.
And rotate that. So Ryan, you can even give it a try because you probably, as I describe it, I'm like, oh yeah, this is what I feel. But this is your first time doing it, so you may be like, oh crap, I actually feel this when I do this.
So
also, I feel like
does this placement matter more? Like where?
Not necessarily.
Like
I mean, if you're thinking about like textbook, we can say like 90 degrees at both knees. However, I like to think about it more as like what feels good. Sometimes for me, I like to take as I fall, I like to take the back knee back just a little bit more. So I create a little bit more hip flexion here. So you might walk forward just a little bit. Go ahead, walk forward more. Yep. Take your foot forward more too. Oh gosh. Keep going. And lean forward. So your pants. I got it.
Oh, I can kind of feel it.
So you get a little more hip
I can
flexion
feel it
in this
right
region.
here in my
Exactly.
bottom lower.
Yep.
Left.
So you get a little more flexion in that region. You get a little more of a stretch.
Yeah.
So that's why I say like be mindful of you in particular when you do this position. So you could do 90-90 at both knees. You could also just lunge forward a little bit more, kind of angle forward to get more hip flexion out of this left side. So go ahead and bring your right arm up. You're going to rotate up in this arch motion. Palm is going to face that wall. Head is going to
face your right knee.
Sorry?
Your right palm is going to face your right knee.
Correct, yep. So you're going to face out that way. Head is going to follow palm the entire duration. So we're kind of keeping that spine in that neutral position and kind of rotating everything throughout. Swoop down, hand in front of knee, come all the way through. Now when you get down here, I like to think about it as like a pole being over here that's away from you. So actually we'll think about this tabletop here. You're trying to reach for that. Exactly. So you said, oh God.
Yeah.
You're most likely feeling.
I can feel it on my chest, honestly.
Yeah. So what part of the chest?
My right pec.
Right pec?
Yeah.
There's something wrong then. No, I'm just kidding. We should probably go to the hospital right now. So as you do that, what you should be feeling, so your spine is rotating at the same time. So as I do this motion here,
It's right on my right neck.
you're more. So you probably have a tight right pec as well.
Yeah.
So because you're stabilized there, try
Yeah.
and rotate the elbow outward a little bit.
This one?
Yep. So rotate this one outward. There you go. Do you still feel it?
Yeah.
Okay. It's probably just super tight. It's fine. So here, what we're looking for was what's happening.
I kind of feel it a little. I want to say it like I don't want to say tingle, but it feels loose or like
Yeah.
maybe there's more like blood flow or something.
Correct. So you're getting more mobility than anything out of him. So
Yeah.
what's happening is the spine the entire time in this position here is rotating to this right side of Ryan. As his arm goes down, what's technically happening from an anatomical standpoint, the lat, which is this massive muscle over here, is being stretched.
I can feel that.
Yeah. So all that's being stretched. This is what kind of like what we're looking for more than anything. Now, if you're like, oh, I'm starting to get some tingling and whatnot, my next question would probably be like, have you ever had sciatica or anything like that?
No, I mean it could be the pants too.
Yeah, it could be probably
they're just so tight.
blood flow, etc. Yeah, so if it's cutting it off and whatnot, that's probably why you're feeling tingly.
Yeah.
But if, for somebody who's like tingly, we go off topic or whatever. And it's like, oh, have you ever had like sciatica or like vertebrae issues, so on and so forth. So that's what we're doing. So he's just going to rotate back and forth 10 times, and he's going to switch sides, do 10 times there.
Okay, is there something you would suggest for somebody who may not, like, who's just starting out that may not be able to get into that position specifically?
Yeah.
Like, maybe putting your hands a little higher, or like, how would you?
Or with like a side
So
getting that
yeah,
motion.
so you can still get the motion. Even if so, you can get super creative. You can use the desk. You can even get here. So if it's somebody who like has knee issues as well, it's kind of like I can't really get down on my knees. What are my other options? You can do a side bend one. So like you said, side plank before. Can you still see me?
Yeah.
So you can do this position, and then Becca, you can even tell me like, well, what if somebody else can't do X, Y, Z? What's the next recommendation? You can challenge me some more. So this is still the same concept. This is still a side lying thoracic rotation.
He's basically laying like if you're a side
Fetal
sleeper,
position.
basically. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm basically in the fetal position. I'll let Becca commentate.
Okay, okay. So you're on your side, and then you have your right arm right like in front of your face. You're looking at your right arm, and you're clamping your hands together and then opening it up like you are accepting a hug.
Fully.
And I love hugs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so you're stretching your arm, your left arm all the way out. So you're looking up at the ceiling essentially when you're done.
So my head is always following my hand, just to keep everything in a nice neutral position. But the idea of this one, so one, I'm making a nice chest stretch as I come out and around. And it's the same thing as me being half kneeling position with the arm up in the air. So, but I'm just doing it from a sideline position. So individuals who either have struggle with their knees being on the ground in such a manner, or being in that split squat position, so on and so forth, this is a much easier position. I've had multiple clients who had like, basically was bone on the knee, also 300 plus pounds. And this was the position we had them get into because it was most comfortable for them. So more than anything, it's a matter of finding what's comfortable for you. But again, I'll demonstrate this one more time. This is what we're looking for or anything. So as I'm basically hands on this prayer position, if you will, and I'm rotating throughout. I'm opening up the spine as I rotate back, head's following hand. I'm rotating back as far as I can. Some people can only get right here. Accept that, acknowledge it, have that awareness around it. That's fine. Take note of it. Come back. Over time, you can be like, oh, I'm making progress. I can now go hike to the table or whatever. This mark on the wall, so on and so forth. And at some point, you can come all the way around, touch the floor, come back up. So go from there. I would recommend for people who have super tight necks or anything like that, have an object be on the ground, whether it's multiple pillows, multiple books to kind of relax your head on, because hovering up can create some tension as you're going back and forth. You might feel kind of like in this left lateral side, like, oh, I'm actually getting tired now being in this position. So you might just rest your head on the book and kind of just roll your head back and forth on it, so on and so forth.
And his hips and everything were square.
Yep.
They didn't move on the.
Yeah, so if I'm laying in the fetal position, my knees and hips stayed in the same position. It was only, so when I say it's not the half kneeling. So when I say it's so that would be a side lying thoracic rotation. Thoracic rotation, remember, being this part of the spine, so this chest region here. So that's the motion I'm creating as I rotate back and forth.
Your thoracic region is your boobs to your belly button.
Correct, yeah. And then we have lumbar region there, and again, cervical region up here. The other option for somebody, if they don't want to put their hands down, it's kind of like, up and my back super tight. I can't get down here. You can also stay upright. If I'm against the wall, we can say that this end here is a wall. If I'm here, I get super close to the wall. I can put my hands both on the wall, and I can create motion there. At the walls here, this hand may try to touch this hand here. So again, for somebody in the pottery world, your chest, Ryan was proof of that. His chest was tight, so he's in this position. He's like, I feel in my chest more than anything. Most likely your chest is super tight. It's more of those push-ups probably. But it's packed more than anything here. And so you being in that position creating pressure down there, you probably just felt that more than anything. So this would probably actually be a good one for you to really stretch that part. So as I'm coming around, this chest here is being stretched and whatnot, but I'm also creating that rotation, that thoracic region to my spine. So and then you can switch sides, you can do the other side, boom, come around.
Is stretching actually also aiding in the muscle building of those?
No. So to build muscle, you need to stimulate it in some manner, and that's where we lift weights to stimulate the muscle.
Okay.
So that's more creating mobility in something. So if you're doing all these push-ups, you have more tension here than anything, and now you also need to stretch it as well so that you're not just like stuck in this position too. So
okay.
It's common. So for you, I might be like, okay, if you want another simple one, you got full gym access upstairs. Grab you a band, do band pull-aparts.
Okay.
Thing like that. It's gonna work.
Do that like earlier in the day before I do my push-ups. Later at night, or do it right.
Yeah, you can do a combination of doing your push-ups. So maybe knock out however many you're doing. Then you do your band pull-aparts to work the opposition, the opposite muscle group. So your back. You're actually promoting this position.
Right.
Because as that gets super, if you build muscle here, you're creating more tension.
Tightness is pulling it forward.
It's creating it forward.
Okay.
So we want to think about.
He's promoting the hunchback position. He's promoting not.
I forget that we're doing hand signals, but we're not describing what we're actually doing. So yeah, as Ryan does more push-ups and whatnot, he's promoting more of
back
shoulders
forward. Roundedness, correct. The shoulder forward, and so, but you're not doing any back work. So then it's like, well, if I want good posture, I need to get my shoulders back and do this. So you can even get super, if you're like, I don't want to walk upstairs, you could do inverted rows from your desk, sit under your desk, head facing the desk, hand, palm facing the end, it's kind of like here, lay underneath it and row upward. Be a super quick option for you.
Pull yourself up.
Pull yourself up. You could do knees bent and whatnot to demonstrate to perform that, but you're working on that opposition. So
okay.
Yeah.
We'll try to like not cut this part, but like take it out and then.
I feel like we need to stop and then like do a whole new like.
Rachel was talking about doing like a video of certain things, and
you
can just be like, okay, here's the.
Well, I also have
specific. Yeah.
I have a ton of videos on YouTube. More than happy to like create a PDF, and then you guys just send it down like, hey, this is the PDF. This is what you should be doing. These are your options.
Yeah.
So,
I'm sure that my commentaries were entertaining.
You did a phenomenal job. I feel like I need to hire you to like go through and do all my YouTube videos.
$5 billion an hour.
I actually like rowing, so it sounds like maybe I should do a combination of doing the push-ups with the rowing because I enjoy that.
So I can do a quick demonstration of, so if you think about, actually you have a kettlebell here. I mean, this isn't going to create much stimulus for you. So if you're thinking about building muscle, you're going to need something heavier. I like the inverted row idea. The other idea you could also do here. So if I do both kettlebells at the same time, I can do bend over rows from here.
Okay, so he is bent over. He's bent over with his knees slightly bent, and he kind of looks like. Yeah, he kind of looks like.
You kind of look like you're about to sit on the toilet.
Yeah. He looks like he's about to sit on the toilet, and then he has his hands in front of him, straight down with the kettlebells in them.
And my back is flat, not rounded.
Yeah.
This is good for core as well because having the weights here in front of me. And then all I'm going to do from here is I'm driving with the elbow and I'm pulling upward and back. So as I'm rowing the weight upward, so I'll actually have you a fun fitness tip. A lot of people when they row by pulling the weight up to their chest in this manner. Mm-hmm. This becomes more of a bicep contraction than anything, not the back. If we want to work the back, we pull it back into our pocket, or if we're starting a lawnmower.
Yeah, that's
I'm pulling it
exactly what I
back.
thought. I was like, wow, he's getting ready to mow the lawn.
He's getting ready to mow the lawn. I'm ready to go. So I'm doing
Yep.
both hands. You can do a unilateral one where you're working one side at a time. I'm a big fan of unilateral because, again, as I said about the digit part, by you doing the individualized digit one, you are individualizing each finger in motion versus doing all of them at once and compensating.
Yeah.
So with a bent over a row in that manner, if you're doing both at the same time, it's totally fine. However, at some point we want to create that individualization, do unilateral stuff, and do like one arm at a time because you can still compensate one side from the other. If that makes sense.
And I would guess with an actual row machine, some people could use their legs a little bit more too to like.
Well, I mean, either way, with the row machine, you still have to pull the handle back.
Versus like scooting back and then pulling, or like.
So it's more a matter of like how far you're really pulling back, and you're really like intentionally. I think one of the flaws too with rowing is people like pull with the elbows, and if you notice, I'm pulling with my elbows, but is my back doing any work right now in relation to if I did this?
Yeah.
Did you notice the difference?
Yeah.
So look at my upper back. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I like. So
you're pulling it all the way to your body.
Yeah. So I can pull my body with my biceps. I can let my biceps do the work and my lats, but you don't really see any activation. I'm like, you can't see any ripples, my shirt rippling or anything like that. So a false row would be something like this. You can't really tell that I'm intentionally moving up here. I'm more moving my biceps and arms than anything. But if I'm true intention to my upper back, I can be here and squeeze everything. You can get a lot more kind of like, you see the shirt kind of ripple up a little bit because you can see
Tits
the
out. Tits out, Josh.
Tits out. Tits are out. The shirt becomes tight there. Exactly.
Tits out.
I feel like we can ramble all day about fitness tips and whatnot, but for you guys in particular, I wouldn't necessarily push-ups are the best for you. Push-ups are a great bodyweight exercise to do, period. I think everybody should be doing them. However, if we're discussing this rounded shoulder position, that's only going to further promote it. And
I'm just doing it because I like push-ups. It's a good goal for me.
A buddy and I were in the gym the other day and we were talking. We were doing a superset. So a superset is just when we combine exercises. So we did a superset of push-ups to pull-ups. And we were just both talking about like those are great body weight exercises because you can do them anywhere you want. Obviously the pull-up you need a lot of strength.
How do you do pull-ups anywhere you want if you don't have a bar?
You can do it from a tree.
Oh, okay.
Wow.
You can go to a playground. You can like even the video today. So typically when I run, I like to do like some type of like small strength session in it, and that typically consists of like some type of ab exercise, some type of like a push-up, and then a pull-up. I love pull-ups. I recognize that it takes a great deal of strength, so not everybody can do them. So it's a matter of like I enjoy doing them, and they're a great body weight workout as a whole. Mm-hmm. But for you guys, I don't know if I'd necessarily pull-ups are still good for you. That's more of like a vertical motion.
Does it differ if you do it with the hands out versus hands in?
Hands in is going to be a chin up. So I'd actually probably tell you guys to do more of a chin up, which is actually going to be easier doing a chin up in relation to a pull up, because a pull up you're requiring more lats, whereas a chin up, when you do a chin up, palms facing you up, you're recruiting more muscle fibers and whatnot. So you're getting more assistance out of that in relation to you being here. It's going to be a lot harder of a motion because you're solely focused on the lats. Versus here, we get biceps in, we get a little more work from the lats and whatnot. Everything's kind of like working together versus just being the lats. But anyway, for you guys in particular, I would say you doing the kettlebell row that I demonstrated would be a great one. If you're thinking about, always have questions of like, hey, what's a good cheap thing that I can get without like breaking the bank, but also not taking up space. So thinking about van life, even when I lived out of my Jeep, I had one kettlebell and one monster band. So Rachel has monster bands. They're basically just like one massive infinity loop. $20 on Amazon. They come in different sizes and whatnot. When I say $20, it's like a full pack. But I would just say grab one of those.
And they're different tensions.
Different tensions. So it'll range anywhere from like, I think the smallest one's 5. It's like a small. I'm thinking of Rachel's kit. The smallest one's like a 5-pound tension or 10-pound. It's either 5 or 10 minimum, and then it goes up after that. So say like 5 to 10. Then 20-pound, a 40-pound, 60 or 80, and then a 100-pound band. So it does vary by tension. Most people are not going to use the latter ones by any means. They're super thick bands which require a lot of like muscle for the most part to like go through the motion of moving them. But I would say grab like one of the smaller 3 ones. But you can do band pull apart. So essentially when I do a band pull apart, I'm going to hold my hands kind of in the down, arms straight out in front of me. Palms are going to be down in a fist motion. I'm going to hold the band between my fists. And then from here, I'm going to pull apart as if I'm squeezing my back muscles at the same time while my arms stay straight the entire time. So when I say I pull out, for those who are listening, well, how would you commentate this, Becca?
Well, he's creating his fist like he was going to smash somebody's brain.
Hulk smash.
In the middle, and then coming out and tits out, and then coming in and smashing a brain.
It looks like he's doing like if you were in a Bowflex or something, like a butterfly motion.
Yeah,
kind of.
Yeah. So my fists are closed.
Yeah.
They're downward the entire time. They're never facing one another, so downward. So just remember that I'm holding the band. I was trying to think of something else I could use, but
I don't have a band.
I'm holding the band, if you will, and then I'm because it's a variable resistance item. As I pull the band apart, it comes harder. But the entire time I'm working this upper back region, and so particularly I'm working like upper traps, rhomboids, middle trap region. I can also get a little bit like rear delts back here and triceps at the same time. But
that's
that
his shoulder and the muscly muscle.
Exactly, the muscle.
The muscle.
But that entire time, I would promote you guys doing that more than push-ups, because that's going to help get you back here to this, from this posture forward, shoulder forward posture, kyphotic posture, to more of a good posture, shoulders back, chest up. So, band pull aparts.
Is there since a lot of people do different throwing, standing versus sitting, what would you say about that? Do you know about standing?
I've seen you do a lot of
throwing, standing versus sitting.
Yeah.
I do all standing, but I would say most people probably sit and throw.
So I can imagine this is probably those who have the capability of buying something where is there like a variable, where it changes height?
You can, but I just use center blocks.
Okay, yeah. So I was gonna say like people who like a work desk from home, like mine's a stand-up desk, so I can change I have 3 different settings. Even if you could buy one of those to throw on, I think that'd be like a great idea. I'm sure that's not portable by any means, if you're like going from setting to setting. But what I'm alluding to is kind of like if you can kind of change up your sitting position to standing versus sitting, that would be great for you in terms of posture. But I think you're alluding to, if you're standing all the time, you're no longer in this flexed forward posture, correct?
Yeah, it's probably a different issue, right? Like I think we were talking with, like Danny Meisinger was talking about it, and he said a lot of those people just have hip issues. You're trading a back issue for a hip issue.
Correct. And it's still like a happy medium of how long you're standing in relation to how long you're sitting. So yeah, when you're standing more, a lot of people, like making sure I'm at, a lot of people where I'm standing here, to compensate, they end up leaning back more than anything. And so typically these SI joints are more compromised, or you start hip shifting a lot. You start hip shifting a lot, so you're just putting one foot forward out. But then to what he said was like that hip position, you're putting more tension on this. And if you are stronger in one side, you're going to favor that one side, and you're going to stand on that one side longer. So that ends up creating that bias, if you will, or imbalance of the hips and muscles and whatnot. Because you're just on that one side all the time, so one side's not getting used, the other side's getting super tight all the time and contracted. Yeah. So there's a ton of imbalances there.
And a lot of people will keep the pedal on the floor,
and if that becomes more active,
use it on one side. So like when I've done that, weaker. I can find that the left hip tends to get tight and like hurt,
right?
Which is opposite where my foot is adjusting the pedal. But I tend to keep the pedal on the wheel head so that they're both equal and I can move around.
And I would still recommend band pull aparts to that individual though, because even though you're standing up a lot, you're still going to be reaching forward to do things. So if my shoulder went from here in a back posture manner or whatnot, kind of like erected, all of a sudden I'm reaching, no matter what, in order for us to reach forward, we have to round. So if you're doing that for a prolonged period of time, so I think no matter what, you should be doing band pull aparts, especially. So for those who are doing throwing for their part-time, or they're building into their career and stuff like that, but they're still working a part-time job, I can probably say 85% of the time somebody who has a full-time job is doing sitting. So at the end of the day, band pull aparts is going to assist you because you're probably sitting most of the day anyway. So it's just going to give you good posture. So now for somebody who's doing like standing and whatnot for hip stuff, there's like, we can just go on a full rant. that person probably needs to do not only mobility but also strength training, like is a demand or should be promoted for him. So you're thinking more of like either like squats, or you're thinking like deadlifts to help kind of like with that. I would say squats I'd promote first. Just because if you're constantly standing, you're not getting much knee flexion in. So we're kind of creating motion in the joints by squatting down to the floor and whatnot. But also strengthening those quads, strengthening those glutes. So
hate squats.
yeah. Well, why do you hate it?
I don't know.
I love squats.
I think it's just the I don't know. It feels so slow, and I don't know.
Do you want to do one and I'll show?
Sure.
Becca's like, yeah. And we'll already say
and
that
it could be that because like my knees or my ankle, like I feel it more, the pop or something. Not pop, but like I can feel the motion or whatever. I don't know.
We can also go ahead and say that Ryan's form may not be his best because he's in jeans. So
true.
Yeah.
True.
So if anything happened, you'd be like, it's my jeans.
Exactly.
Right.
Don't rip them.
Don't rip them.
Don't rip them.
From the gluteus maximus. Squats are great. So
you hear that?
Yeah. So it's typically when that happens, it's weak muscles, if you will. So quads probably. So as you strengthen the quads. Now, Becca, I'm gonna have you watch him. Go ahead and do a couple more. I want you to observe. So I'm gonna say observe from your angle.
Okay.
Then I'm gonna say observe the knees. So you right now are directly looking at the knees.
Now I'm moving my knees. Now that you said that.
Well, that's why I waited to say anything, because I was like, as soon as I say it, he's gonna move his knees. But no matter what, even though I say it, you're not doing what I'm. But you are doing what I want to talk about. So when we see somebody do a squat, what we're noticing for Ryan right now is that both knees kind of cave inward. Becca, do you see that when he does it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So go ahead and do a few more.
He has chicken legs.
So his knees kind of cave inward. And what this typically means is that the individual has a weak glute medius, which controls for an external rotation of the femur.
That's me.
That's Ryan.
So do you angle your feet out?
You have a weak butt?
He's got a weak butt, yes. His gluteus maximus is not as maximus as we would like.
He's not as maximus as he would gluteus.
So technically it's gluteus medius. Gluteus medius lies on the outside and minimus as well. We want that. So yeah, to your question. So whenever we think about biomechanics of the hips and a squat pattern and whatnot, there's a lot of research that looks at what's most optimal. If I said, Ryan, I don't even want you to think about doing a squat. I just want you to get your ass to grass is what I'll say. I want you to get your butt low. Just squat down. Don't think about it. Do whatever you need to get down in this position here. Exactly. Good. So that's comfortable for you, kind of?
I guess, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I can feel it right here in my shins.
And you're going to. It's probably because you've not done much mobility for them, strengthening, so on and so forth. But that's kind of a happy position for you. Now, if I said, Ryan, bring both your feet inward and face your toes this way, now squat down, what's going to happen?
Rip.
It's
hard.
It's hard right here.
Yeah.
And
How's it feel in the hips?
It's just harder to go down.
Correct, yeah. So what happens is that the femur, this big bone right here, so if anybody ever says they broke their femur, that's like a freak accident of some sort, because this bone is super thick. So as the bone comes up and whatnot, we have kind of like a ball. It's a ball and socket motion. So if I'm like this would be the ball of the femur right here where it meets into the hip. The femur comes straight down to create like this patella for his knee. But the thing is about the ball, as well as the shaft of that, everybody's is angled differently. So some people say, okay, so if a trainer says, oh, well, just do toes forward and squat down, it's not going to be anatomically correct for every single individual. Females have a wider hip, so therefore if I say a male and female have the same angle for a squat, it's going to be incorrect and whatnot. So when I tell an individual to squat, I say whatever you need to do to get down to the lowest point for you, fiddle with it for a little bit and just try it. You did it. Your feet are about 30 degrees pointed outward. Go ahead and squat down. Oh, try a little bit wider. See what you think.
Oh, wider?
Just fiddle.
Oh, okay.
That might be too much. But it's not playing around with the squat position. There's no
So
right.
it's about comfortability.
It's about comfortability in the hip, correct. So it's a matter of, like, for me, I'm more of an outward. Like, I have to get outward. So most likely my femur and whatnot is in a particular direction. This suits me to be in this position. Now, if I say I get in this position, I can only do it because I've been training for so long and mobility-wise, I'm fine. I can get down here. However, that's super uncomfortable for me.
Is it, and it would work different muscles, or it would?
Not necessarily work
Is
different. It would work different muscles in
strain
terms of
them,
like,
or?
if I'm doing it here, I might get a little bit more inner quad versus out here, or vice versa. I'm sorry. So outward, I'd get more inner quad. Also kind of like more outer glute, but I would not focus on that small detail. Typically, when we focus on the small details, we take away from the entire picture as a whole. Just focus on the squat, find what suits you and whatnot. The biggest thing for me in relation to like stating this squat for you is when you were in the other position, your knees were doing knock knees. Okay, your knees were caving inward. Now your knees are not. Okay.
Because they can't. I mean, they kind of can't with
Correct.
the angle.
This is a better position for you.
Okay.
So we are still working that gluteus medius muscle, that minimus and whatnot, but still there's. So when I say that, there's 3 different muscles: the minimus, medius, as well as the maximus. I'm not making a joke in terms of like your size and whatnot. No. So you have minimus, medius, and maximus. Maximus is the biggest glute muscle.
Okay.
But we noticed that your knees are starting to cave inward. Now, if I kept you in that position, we were trying to strengthen your gluteus minimus, medius. We could put a band around your knees, or I could just give you the cue. Take your feet back in just a little bit, and kind of like if you were mimicking your original squat position.
So now his feet are forward instead of outwards a little.
Yeah, so we're kind of trying to mimic that original position he was doing to see if we can get that knock knee. He's probably not going to do it because we're talking about
it.
Well,
they kind of went down and kind of shifted.
Yeah. But if I just say, Ryan, push your knees out. So when you do that, where do you feel it in your glutes? So let him go in. Stay in that position down. Let him fall inward. Now push them out. Yeah. So you get the outside glute. So that's what you're feeling right now.
Okay.
So because it's weak and whatnot, you're caving inward. But we're just creating the cue. A lot of times it's just creating the cue of like, push your knees out, Ryan. Push your knees out, Ryan. And that a lot of times kind of corrects for the motion itself, but also kind of activates those muscles that we want to. So
okay.
If you kept forgetting, then I would just put a band around your knees and say, Ryan, do this instead. That band is pushing you inward more, and so you're creating that awareness, like pushing the band out. If that makes sense.
What's the risk of doing it wrong? Because let's say I'm not with somebody like you that
Sure.
could tell me, hey, this is what you need to do. Is it risk on my knees? Is it not activating the muscle as much, and I'm not getting as much out of the exercise?
So I'm trying to think of somebody who's
not harming me.
So you did not have bad form by any means, so I wouldn't say it would harm you by any means. I'm trying to think of somebody who had bad. No, I don't think there's a point of causing harm that you should be fearful of when you do a squat. I would just state that you wouldn't get as much muscle activation in by getting more depth. Does that make sense? So the further I go down, the more a muscle has to travel and activate. Okay. So if I'm going down lower here, now the muscle has to activate in order for me to come all the way up. So there's more tension on that muscle and whatnot, versus if I just did this.
So it's not about saying like, oh, it's easier to go down more. It's more comfortable.
Right. We're just getting more muscle activation and whatnot. If I get full range of motion and come.
So if he's pooping in the grass as opposed to just sitting on somebody's lap.
Correct.
Yeah.
So he's gonna build. He's gonna have more muscle activation and the quads, the glutes and whatnot, the core. If he's in this position in relation to constantly just doing this.
Yeah. Instead of just going like 90 degrees.
Not even 90 degrees. You're like more of like.
You're going like, yeah.
Yeah. We'll just say like you're going.
Or something.
Yeah. So that makes sense. So I wouldn't be fearful of it impacting you like harmful. I would just say like squatting the way I did that latter portion, you're not getting full muscle activation and whatnot in relation to that full range of motion. Should one have, so also when you pushed your knees outward and you got more comfortable position, you weren't having as much popping as well, right?
I don't think so, no.
So the muscle was moving in a more of an aligned manner. So typically if we have that, the knees kind of caving inward, the feet are in a certain position, you hear popping a lot more. That's usually a tendon popping over a bone, like a bony prominence of some sort. Not always bad by any means. Sometimes that could be just muscle weakness and tightness. Other times it's a matter of alignment and figuring out like, oh, my knee wasn't in line with my toe. So when I say that, that's kind of a big cue as well. So when Brian went down, his knees went inward. Well, we can already tell that he's not in alignment. We want a nice alignment from hip essentially all the way to toe, or knee and toe. So instead what I could do is kind of like, hey, get your knee in line with your toes. So when he goes down, my knee's kind of going in a line, he's going to feel a lot more comfortable
Mm-hmm.
doing that motion in alignment. Otherwise, the quad muscle is here, the tendons are here. So as he goes down, he might have this tendon here pop over.
Okay.
But still, I mean, you might, yeah. I'm not going to ramble in terms of like worst case scenario.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. If you hear a popping, just check your alignment. Is my knee in line with my toe? Just send me a video. I'll tell you quick. Like, hey, do this instead. So.
Okay.
Whoa, it's 10 o'clock.
10 o'clock.
Yeah.
Are there? So
Susie's definitely in bed.
I'm guessing a lot of people also might like do something like chiropractors or things like that versus to kind of I want to say reset themselves or something, because you're doing so many motions. Like, are there like things to watch out for, or is that good getting alignments because you're doing this and you're set positions versus working specifically on exercises and stretches?
So I would say that we went over a few exercises of like, oh, you should be doing band pull-up arts. Ideally, you should be doing a full body exercise regimen, and that's just going to help with those muscle imbalances, if you will. I think a chiropractor comes into play when there could be like just people have typical like or common joint issues and kind of like need to be put back into place. However, I do think that I want to use my words cautiously before I just say anything. There used to be a negative connotation back like when I was in the physical therapy world. There was a negative connotation with chiropractors. I'll stop there. It's since then as much improved in the relationship of both. And I think also chiropractors have improved because I have a chiropractor that I refer clients out to because I've used him before, and I like him because he doesn't do a quick fix. And this was kind of the thing. Back in the day, it was more of like quick fix and wanted you to come back in for quick fixes because then you're constantly paying for a service.
Might come in once a month for an alignment if you keep doing.
Well, sometimes it'll be more of like, oh, come in next week and be like a 12-week process, but in reality, there was more of a Band-Aid, a temporary reset.
It's like paying for therapy to get out of therapy or paying for therapy to stay in therapy.
Correct, yes. And so the newer chiropractor education and whatnot now, what I would recommend typically is like, or not recommend, I'm sorry, the newer chiropractor world and whatnot, and if anybody's listening who's a chiropractor, you can totally correct me on this. The education is different in terms of when people typically seek a chiropractor, they give you a full evaluation and kind of give you exercises to do to help overcome this constant need to come back in. The objective or the goal is to keep you out from coming back into to chiropractor world or chiropractor session and whatnot. Same thing with physical therapy. The goal is to kind of like give you this, to teach you so that you're accountable to do these other things on your own, so that you're not needing to come back in for constant sessions, that you are healed, if you will. So, yeah, typically the guy I have right now, I love him because of the fact that when I went in to seek him, I was having back issues because I was just introduced to sitting for 8 hours a day at noon, whereas before I had my studio, I was walking around 24/7. I didn't have any pain and whatnot. I finally witnessed what it felt like when I was working with clients. Oh, this is what they're feeling from sitting like this all day. That fatigue feeling, that rounded shoulder or spine position and whatnot. I went in to see him. I was like, hey, I recognize what's happening, but I want somebody to look in for me. And he was like, oh, it's just a matter of core weakness. And I'm like, but I work core all the time. For me, it was more of like not working core stability, if you will, in a correct manner of overcoming that thoracic lean. So my core is failing me while sitting all day long. So anyway, what I was saying, I was like, wait, that didn't make sense. What I was saying was kind of like, ensure that your chiropractor is giving you a movement analysis and is giving you exercises to do at home versus just coming in for a quick readjustment and leaving. So
yeah,
some people do need adjustments regularly, and it's not a matter of like a muscle compensation thing. They just regularly need that fix, if you will. So yeah,
because a lot of times, you're seated, you're throwing, you're typically going to be leaning to the right if you're a right-handed thrower, and you're going to be doing motions on the right-hand side of the pot.
Right.
So your spine is always going to be going that way.
Correct.
And I
So-
would guess your back is going to be, tighter here because you're pulling.
So it's going to be stretched more here. It's going to
yeah.
be tight on the other side. Your quadratus lumborum.
Tight on the right. Okay.
Tight on the right. Yeah. So typically you probably like do more of a stretch and whatnot. You
Mhm.
stretch, strengthen. But again, that's where the core comes into place and keeping this core braced and whatnot as you do your motions and stuff. Excuse me. Keeping it braced in that manner. And so people, like I said before, like if you're doing this kind of like regular overuse repetitive motion and whatnot, there are times, even though you are given exercises, you will still need to go in to get a quick adjustment and whatnot.
Okay.
So that's why I said like some people, they still need to go in sometimes. So it's not a matter of like a one and done thing. So for me, it was a one and done thing. So I was like, oh, this is what I learned. For others who are kind of like in this kind of like awkward position regularly, and you need such a service, do it by all means. This is just me. I'm more always hesitated when I see neck popping.
Like
Yeah.
the very satisfying.
Yeah. That's just me. That's a me thing. It's not a.
Huh.
I'm very cautious of my neck, and I'm like,
because it's so
dude, there are
sensitive
so
that, like,
many
if you-
nerves that run through there. The idea of having just like a misalignment in some manner and creating some issue. That's just a me thing.
It's not worth the risk.
It's not worth the risk for me.
For you.
I've had it done once. My PT did it to me. It felt good, but I was like, all right, I've had that done once. I'm good.
Okay.
Yeah.
I have kind of a fun question that's separate from exercises and stuff that is more like your small business related. So like, I think you've said that you've hired a business coach.
Mm-hmm.
Can you say like what motivated you to get one and like what are they helping you with specifically?
So I think this kind of excuse me. To what Becca said before about having that accountability buddy. If you are a solopreneur, you are often by yourself a lot of times. You don't have that accountability from others and whatnot. I think you probably have a lot of accountability because you do your business stuff, your financial classes and stuff like that. I suspect anyway.
Yeah.
So
and
you
I talk with Becca every
we talk
week,
about
so.
yeah. So for me, I don't feel that I have that because I am in the online space. I don't have I don't work at a commercial gym where I have other to converse with or to have that motivation and accountability with. I was also seeking.
And are you in a space where there's a lot of sharing and openness of
totally.
willingness to share knowledge, but also not like give secrets away, or I don't know.
So
like we're in a space where I would say the clay community is pretty open. And
yeah, no, it's totally
willing.
so you can get into a space where it can be very closed off. I think it's kind of like it depends on who you're with. Is that individual and group vulnerable enough to share their information? I don't think there's anything at this point in 2024 that you can't share that's not already out there. Like you're basically just kind of like recreating what's already out there and stuff like that. For me, hiring the business coach, it was accountability purposes, having somebody look in to see what I was doing, because I feel like that what I was doing was not necessarily the end all be all, but it definitely wasn't where I knew there could be improvements in certain areas. Mostly in terms of operating systems, having somebody help me like, hey, I know how to do personal training. How do I do the business stuff? So having that business coach was like helpful in that manner. From my past business, I finally learned like YouTube and all this other stuff, how to do my taxes and how to do like operating in that sense of like keeping all my finances logged and whatnot. But just in terms of, I think for this person more than anything, it was more content creation stuff, lead generation, couple other things.
Giving you ideas to do on your own.
Correct.
And
so she's more of an accountability buddy, and she looks. Well, I shouldn't say accountability. I'm sorry. She is that, but she's also a coach in that she looks in and says like, "Hey, you can actually do better or reach your given goal if you're doing a little bit more of this. Let's build that." Again, us talking about habits. Let's figure out that small thing you can do to help you start scaling to that direction. If that makes sense. When I first started, I honestly felt like it was a waste of time, just because they were going over things. There's a
lot of learning up front too, right? They have to fact find to figure out
they're getting to know me. I'm getting to know them as well. Yeah. But it's also when I say a business coach, this is also more of a group thing than a one-on-one thing. So as a group, we were working on finding our niche, finding out the pain points of our individuals, a niche, if you will, And I'd already done all that stuff before. I'd already created my website on my own. I did like MailChimp for my mailing or my email system and stuff. I was already using Stripe for my invoices and my payment processing and whatnot. Whereas a lot of people going into it, they're using like Venmo, Stripe, and like multiple other processing units or systems. And so their objective is kind of like keeping you like narrowed down to one, so you can kind of like have everything in one place.
Yeah.
So a lot of people don't have the like
eliminate the distractions, so you're
correct.
You're like dollar smart and not penny wise.
Correct. And some people have the capability of being like, oh well, I use Venmo, Stripe, you use Etsy. Does that sync?
Yeah.
So they move, but you have the ability to use multiple ones, but you also have the ability at the end of the day to bring it all together and organize it in a different way.
Right.
Not everybody. You're a very disciplined individual. Not everybody has that ability, and so their objective too is kind of like getting you just to one processing unit, so that everybody's kind of like, I like the word that you used was like that. You're eliminating distractions, so you're not hopping from Venmo or hopping from this to that all the time. Yeah. You just have this one, and that's that. So yeah. Okay. So that was kind of one of the things, but I already had all that set up. I still use Venmo and I still use my Stripe as my invoicing system, but I'm fine with that because I think I like to give people options and how they pay things and whatnot. So those are my two things.
Yeah, and you being services based, there's only certain amount that you can do to like increase your business. It's like more clients, or you charge the clients, you have more money, so you give them like a way to extend what they're already doing.
That for me is like one thing that this business coach was very, I'm gonna say pushy. I was gonna say I'm not gonna use it, but I'm gonna say pushy. Because at the end of the day, you're trying to reduce burnout, and one way to reduce burnout is not working as much as you are, or just not having as many clients as you do. For me anyway, in the services. So instead, increasing prices and whatnot. And for me, there's just a sweet spot that I'm willing to charge where I feel like it's just too much. And it's not a matter of self-worth for me anymore. It's more a matter of just like the price she was telling me to charge, I thought was just, for me, maybe I'm just not ready for it, but I thought it was just ridiculous, for lack of a word. I thought it was entirely too much.
And was that do you think that was suggested as a way to say, okay, this is the shock value number, so he's going to come down from that so that it's somewhere in the middle of where you're comfortable with?
For sure. It could have been.
Yeah.
What was the number?
For online training, it was $400 per month. I think in the online training world, I think that's too much.
Wait, how many sessions is that?
No, that's online. That's not in person. So sorry, I should go back and say so my services, I do both online and in-home services. So Rachel, for example, I see her in home, in person and whatnot. I travel to people's houses. I travel to condos. I don't work out of a gym anymore. So we'll go back to that second question or first question when you said like, what do you do? I left this part out. So I travel to people's houses. I travel to people's condos. I bring equipment on my Jeep. So I have like kettlebells, dumbbells, Swiss ball, medicine ball, resistance bands, battle ropes, a bunch of other stuff in my Jeep that just stay in there, and I bring it to their house. Rachel actually has a bunch of my old equipment from my prior gym that I sold her then. Some people already have equipment, so we just utilize what they have. So me seeking out business mentorship was specifically to help with my online personal training.
And so online are you doing like sessions one-on-one with people over Zoom, or what's that?
No. So when I say online, this is specifically using an app. I guess we didn't answer the first question technically. So my services online is app-based. So in that app-based, you have the ability to, so I create custom workouts for you. You have all of your workouts loaded and whatnot. You can go in and log your sets, your reps, your weight. You can see videos of me demonstrating stuff. When I meet individuals, I do a first consultation, complimentary consultation, which is 45 minutes typically. And then after that, we do 20-minute weekly Zoom calls. So technically you're getting 20, 40, 60, almost an hour's worth of one-on-one time with me each week, where we do converse, but it's more a matter of like, what went well, what didn't, what do you want to talk about, what were your pain points, and just I like it because it's more of like, it creates more that personal touch in the online world.
You're not just giving him a meal plan or a workout thing.
Yeah, I'm not
just saying,
like,
all right, have at it.
Yeah, I want that one-on-one connection if somebody's going to pay me and whatnot. That was kind of something I also fought over because with this coaching and whatnot, they kind of want to keep that one-on-one as minimal as possible so that you are able to do more work in terms of generating leads, content creation, so on and so forth. But for me, I really value the one-on-one touch. So it's the same link when somebody does a complimentary consultation. It's the same link of doing that one-on-one Zoom call. If they're local, I'll meet them for coffee. And so we'll just do coffee one-on-one and just like meet in person and stuff. So yeah, this business coach is specifically for online training, like build that. Because at the end of the day, I want that to be my main source of income, because I know that I can help. So my goal is always help more people. I know that I can help more people online versus being in person. I don't have so much time, obviously. So, but online, I can write programs, I can do things. Even though I say people have the option to schedule 20-minute weekly calls, a lot of people don't do that. A lot of people, I guess, introvert versus extrovert based. A lot of people just they prefer texting. They don't want to do a 20-minute call, and that's totally fine. So it's a matter of like seeking out what's best for them and stuff like that. So
How much do you charge? How much do you charge for the month now versus the $400 that she wanted you to?
200.
I think that's reasonable.
I think that's reasonable. So, and I think with the population I mostly work with, that is more financially reasonable in relation to that 400, because $400,
a lot.
A lot of people don't have that supplementary income to be able to do it. I mean, I recognize that personal training is a luxury service, if you will, because you have that extra supplementary income to be able to afford that per month.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of people don't have that money. And so even when I had my gym back in the day, and this is what actually got me into trouble, I specifically looked for all the prices in Northern Kentucky. I compared them all. I made mine the cheapest. Not a matter of getting more clients, but it was a matter of helping more people. A lot of people were charging $80 per session, $100 per session, etc. And the idea of somebody paying $80 per hour for personal training, I'm like, dude, that's so much. For me anyway. My partner, a lot of their clientele and whatnot are able to do that. But I recognize that a lot of people that I work with aren't capable of doing that. So when I had my gym and whatnot, I charged $35 per hour. And $35 per hour is not much by any means. But my objective was to be able to help as many people as possible. So that got me into trouble because I was working from 6 a.m. all the way to like 8 or 9 p.m. Monday through Friday. And then I would do 6 a.m. to 2 p.m. on Saturday. That eventually led into Sunday, because my only objective was to help people, and I stopped. Yeah, at some point you also have to make money as well, and in order to do so, you also have to work more hours. Mm-hmm. So at that point in time, though, I never felt the need to charge more. But I also recognized, looking back now, like now what I do charge more, because it's like I'm driving there. I also value more of my time, so it's like I need to also have an income as well. So yeah, going to online, I do think that 400 is entirely too much. So where I'm at is $200 per month, and I think that's more of like doable for most people.
Plus, you're not tied to the region, so like there could be people in California where the money goes
correct. This longer. Is worldwide. So, and I have clients worldwide. So I have a lot of clients, and I shouldn't say a lot of clients. I have a few clients in Southeast Asia because they work for P&G and are affiliated. I started with P&G clients and whatnot here locally, and that's kind of like spread out to such because they have headquarters in Southeast Asia. I have clients in I was thinking of Emmanuel right now. He's in Seattle. And you think about the referral aspect of it. So I think it's his girlfriend's brother or whatever is in. So he's a referral. So he's in Washington, Upper Washington and whatnot. Multiple in Kalispell, Montana, because I had multiple friends there, and it trickles onward. So I forgot about all kinds nationwide. But that's the benefit of online, is that you're able to help more people and whatnot all over the world versus being like in person and only able to devote so much time to and whatnot in the day.
And their time zone makes it flexible for you when you can,
because even thinking about Emmanuel,
work with them. Because
even thinking about Emmanuel and his brother-in-law and whatnot, like they are, what is the time difference? It doesn't matter.
3 hours.
Is it 3 hours?
Washington. Yeah.
So yep. Have their workouts loaded on one day. When I wake up, they haven't even woken up yet. So by the time they do wake up, it's already there and loaded and whatnot. And they're like, oh, okay, cool, it's already done. Versus opposition or whatever, where like they might already be awake and they're still waiting on me. But now it's like, okay, everything's already done. They don't have to worry about me. Boom. So yeah. And also it's also interesting because like sometimes when I do Zoom calls, I did with Emmanuel the other day. So he's more of a running client, and I think he set it up for like. It was basically 8 o'clock here, Or no, I'm sorry, it was afternoon. I said good afternoon, but then I realized it's like, oh wait, it's the morning there. So he just woke up and stuff like that. So
Okay.
let's be mindful of that. Yeah.
Hmm.
Anyway, the business mentorship, that's more online than anything. So that's why I rambled more about the online. So
Yeah. Do you did you have to like come to terms with like it's worth the money as like, okay, it's worth this money because I'm going to make more money to cover it in the
correct.
end, and
It was
it's
more,
gonna be
yeah. It was
easy
more a
to-
matter of like taking the business mentorship and finding something that somebody you can. And I think this is like the important part about personal training as well. Is you're finding a mentor that you can actually like vibe with, you have a good connection with, and stuff like that, which I think we do. I had been following her for a while, and I was like, all right, I'm ready to bite the bullet. I was ready to bite the cost because the mere fact that I knew that the value coming back was going to help not only my business but also my clients. There was going to be more systems in place that was going to be more organized. It was going to be more valuable to them. It was going to be more helpful to them, and that was my yes to the profit part of it. I'd be able to like create more lead generation, content creation, etc., but also the ability to have the organization to make more sense for the clients and whatnot.
Yeah. Becca's got to wrap up because she's got to work. And I got to eat.
Your wife?
Yeah, well, you keep asking questions.
Well, we can always.
I thought that was a fun ender question.
Ugh.
Business coach. I don't know. Maybe some people out there are thinking about business coach. So I was.
Yeah,
That's true.
I think it's a great idea. Definitely. So when I said my first part was kind of what did I forget the correct word I used? Not worth it, if you will. But that was only because I already had so
So
much
like
in
it was
place.
a waste of money.
Yeah,
is what you were
but
thinking.
that was only because I also had so much experience already of doing this from 2014 to 2019. I'd already done website design, I'd already done processing units, I'd already done systems and organization and whatnot. The pain points of a niche client and whatnot in relation to once we got into month 2, now we're getting into where I need to be and whatnot. So now it's like, oh, okay,
Yeah.
now we're making sense. And so I have this one in particular is a 4-month process. So yeah.
Okay.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
Cool.
All right, Becca. Any last questions or words?
And we can always do a part 2 or whatever else.
I think we probably should. Joshua, what is your favorite color?
It varies. Right now, I would say orange.
Oh, that's a good color. That's our
Right,
favorite
right.
color.
That's my favorite color.
I'd
I think
say
back
our.
then I probably would have said like blue or red, but now I'm kind of like in an orange vibe.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. Hell yeah.
What's your favorite color?
My favorite color is traditionally orange.
Yeah.
Yeah.
See, that's why you got great minds in the same room.
I feel like there's not that. When I was growing up, there weren't that many people that said they loved orange. Like orange is their
No,
favorite
nobody does.
color.
No.
Still the same. It's still the same.
Why is that? I feel like orange is a very
People are
neutral
awful.
color. Like it's not like gender specific. I don't know.
That's not. I think also orange is like more
Because typically like blue is
positivity,
always the.
happy vibes. Like I don't. Even if you look at content creation, like people are typically what's the word I'm looking for? Like they're more of like drawn to yellow or orange, from what I've learned so far. But even my business, there's orange colors in there. Like it's just I like orange. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
Activity, happiness.
My least favorite color is like Ryan's hat color. The blue in Ryan's hat. That's my least favorite color.
Royal blue.
It is so boring.
So this entire time we can't see her face because she's been making a face at you, and she's like, ugh. I'm so glad he's going to the
But
bathroom right now.
there's probably plenty of blues that you do like though.
Yeah, there's some. But definitely like that deep blue. The blue is awful.
Yeah. I used to be a big blue fan.
Yeah, that would have probably been my second favorite color. But also, I grew up like University of Kentucky, stuff
Oh yeah, good
stuff
point.
like that.
Same.
So
Yeah.
it's like Kentucky blue, but
Yeah. All right. Where can people find you?
Website wellnesswithjoshua.com. And then Facebook, Instagram's the same thing, Wellness with Joshua. Everything's the same. PayPal as well, Wellness with Joshua. Or sorry, Stripe, my bad. Or Venmo.
Which one? Which one?
You just said you had one system.
Just
Use
pick
it.
So would you be open if somebody like wanted to do like a consult with you or something like that?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Like what?
So consults.
Or just like an online like one-off like X dollar an hour thing with you, or like?
Well, I was gonna say consults is one of those things for me where it's like, now my business coach would be like, certain things I've learned as well. I'm always open to doing consults, even if the person just wants to chat. However, my business mentor would say, as soon as they book the appointment, you need to make sure they're going to actually pay you and like sign up afterward.
How do you know that? How do
So
you
go through a system of questions and whatnot to get to that.
see how serious they are if they fill out the
Yeah, so
questions?
in business, the mentorship and whatnot, they typically say after they schedule the appointment, you immediately cancel the appointment and you say, hey, before we get started, I want to ask you a series of questions to ensure we're a good fit. Because you already know they've signed up and whatnot, they're interested.
Right.
That's not my vibe. I like talking to people. I like helping people. So for me, it's more a matter of if somebody has any ailments or curiosity, etc., I'm always just like, book the call. Like, so the way my calendar works, it's kind of like with when I book the podcast with you guys, you have available hours and whatnot. So the calendar gives you full availability to my schedule and whatnot. So whatever is open and is there, it's there for a reason. So people can just schedule it. I even have friends sometimes, and my friend is a client as well, and she's in California, but she books it and we just have coffee chats. It's 20 minutes, we just chat. But it's just more out of communication and getting to know people. So
Yeah.
to your point,
We'll say this. If you book a consultation with Josh, what we ask is you Venmo him for coffee.
oh yeah, coffee, that works.
There you
No,
go.
if there's any ailments or curiosity, etc., and somebody's needing something or whatever, don't feel like it's also a sales call as well. This is pure generosity of like, or genuinely trying to help people and whatnot. So if you're like, hey, I'm really struggling with back issues, I'm always more than happy to talk. You had several people, like when we talked about the podcast, and I put up an Instagram story that basically said, hey, does anybody have any questions in preparation for this? There were several people that messaged and just said, had this, and I sent you guys the same message.
You sent them a novel back.
I sent them a novel, and that's just proof how much I do care in helping people and whatnot. It was a novel of varying things that could be the case that they could be working on, along with links to multiple YouTube channels, to equipment, so on and so forth. So again, if it's more about just like you have questions, whatnot, you need to navigate, don't hesitate to book a call and whatnot. If you're like, hey, I actually do need personal training, obviously feel free to book a call as well.
Yeah.
Just don't take advantage of him.
Correct. Yeah, that's what. Yeah. Thank you, Becca.
Yes.
Coffee's always great. So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, Josh. Thanks for your time.
No, I appreciate it.
Thanks for
That was
coming
fun. I was nervous at first, but now I'm like, all right.
We didn't even go.
Bad.
Yeah, it's not. I wasn't like reading these lists off the list and stuff. You know.
Yeah.
I'm
We
glad.
went so long that it stopped our recording and restarted one.
Oh really?
Whoa.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, I
It
think I
must
see.
have stopped it at 3 hours.
All right.
Well, hopefully it didn't stop us in an important part. But yeah, so I'm happy to come back and like do something else, or
we can get feedback from this one. If y'all have feedback about this,
yeah,
let us know. Hey, if you want something specific.
Yeah, if you need exercise or something like that, we could just do either a demonstration of Ryan again going through things. We could actually wear gym shorts.
Maybe we do a little live Instagram.
A live would be fun.
And then it would get saved on Instagram so people can watch it.
So we could do that. We could do multiple stuff. I could also just create a PDF to send to you guys that entails what we kind of discussed and whatnot, and then go from there. If you guys have specific questions.
Sweet.
Yeah.
All right. Well, this is going live on Saturday, so.
I'm nervous.
We're like behind the game on recording these, but
Killed it.
It'll be up on Saturday.
Cool.
All right.
Thanks, Josh. The best.
Pleasure.
Thanks to everybody for listening. We hope you got a lot of value of it, and have a good day.
Peace.
Bye.
Bye.
Hey everybody, thanks for listening to another episode of Wheel Talk. This podcast is made possible through the contributions of all of our listeners who always ask us great questions, leave us reviews, and contact with us through social media. Thanks to all the fellow makers as well who take time to be interviewed and share about their lives and businesses.
And thank you to Ashley from Boldover Ceramics and Lindy from Lindy Garner Ceramics for their assistance on the Wheel Talk Podcast Instagram. You are invaluable. Thank you to everybody.